Welcome to episode 85. And as you can tell by all the decor, it is our 2024-2025 NHL preview. But we've got a lot more on the table. And Michael, welcome back from the Stone Age, my friend.
Thank you. I do appreciate it. 65 hours without power was fun.
Yeah, it's now you know how I felt when the tornadoes ripped through here a couple of months
Well,
ago.
yeah, no, and obviously, everybody is well and health and safe. I can tell you, um, uh, the refrigerator was god awful,
That's
and
the absolute worst is having to go through and dump all of that.
yeah,
Going to the
and
store, not a big deal because you're only spending a little bit more than what you normally do, but it's getting rid of all of that stuff because of the smell, the cleaning, the dumping, the rinsing, and 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 the lugging it out to the trash afterwards.
yup, it was terrible. Steph said, "I smell sulfur." I said, "Those are the eggs."
Which is why I don't keep eggs in the apartment.
Well, we have a kid who likes to eat them for breakfast, and a wife who eats them for breakfast every day. So I kind of have no choice.
Throw them against something.
I got a few things I'd like to egg, but why don't we get to, like you said, it's good. We got the NHL preview tonight, and of course, we are loaded because as the Major League Baseball postseason is in full swing, Jim. So what do you say we get right into the hat trick and let's get this sucker going?
It's the three biggest topics in the world of sports from the last week. Get ready for the Wise Guys hat trick.
And the appropriate beginning to the hat trick is the hockey goal horn. I got to tell you though, I love that you do that. I really do.
What, the
The goal,
horn or the fact
the horn.
or the fact that I went Islanders tonight?
I'm here so I won't get fined. So as I mentioned in the little popper in the cold open, as we call it, MLB's divisional series kicked off today. Winners early. Listen, the Gardos just took it to Detroit this afternoon with a 5-run first inning. Lane Thomas, as Jim said, he had a nice little piece of trivia for us. What was that, Jim?
Lane Thomas hit a 3-run home run in the first inning. It was the first pitch he's ever seen in his career in the postseason.
And of course, Thomas came up with the post 2019 Washington Nationals, who have been, for lack of a better term, a dumpster fire since winning that championship over the Houston Astros. In the second game of the day, the cardiac fucking Mets do it again. Zach Wheeler goes 7 innings of one hit ball. They pull him in the 8th, and the Mets score 6 unanswered to win 6-2. Well, the Phillies scored 1 run in the 9th. A 6-2 game 1 win, and now head into the meat of their rotation after Kodai Senga comes off the DL and starts today. And I don't think that ball Schwarber hit has landed yet, by the way.
No, it's
still going.
I mean, I'm going to probably still see it in orbit here in about 2 hours. I think it's going to be, I gotta pull out the telescope and see if it actually will, impact the flight pattern of the Noah Ruggles kick. But
I know I don't think it's that far left. Honestly, that ball was pulled, so I don't think we have to worry about that. And you're a douchebag, by the way. But I will say this: I want to go to the Gardos first. I was a little worried about the layoff because Detroit has been the hottest team in baseball the last 3-4 weeks.
I think they actually said 31-13 since August 5th. And no
That's
other team in baseball was anywhere close to that.
Yeah, that's an insane record. And by the way, hats off to the Detroit Tigers, which we would have covered them getting in last week had Helene not knocked the power out like it did for us down here. But hats off to the Detroit Tigers. That's a hell of a run to get into the postseason. And then to beat the ass of the Houston Astros was just wonderful. Going back to the Gardos, I did say, because I was talking to Nick during the game, and I said to him, I said, listen, if they don't start scoring again, and Detroit's offense gets on track, they're going to be in trouble because they're a scary offense, Jim, because they don't have the big boppers, but when they get the line moving, they keep it moving. And by the way,
that's the concerning thing about now game 2. You're going up against you're basically going up what I actually like to call Derek's screwball. Actually facing the leading candidate for the Cy Young. If you can actually get this, I mean, you got a chance to go back to Comerica and end this thing and get yourself another little layoff.
Yeah, I don't think this goes past 4 games. I will be honest with you. If Scooble is on tomorrow, it's going to Detroit Tide.
They've got a day off, which is weird considering both of the AL series go Saturday, off Sunday, back Monday, whereas both of the NL series go Saturday and Sunday, then off Monday, and then Tuesday, Wednesday. So
you would think they would want to.
The AL doesn't get the breaks. I think the reason why the scheduling changed is the fact that your Mets ended up going 3, and that's what ended up screwing everything on the back end, because now they've got both of those series have to go back to back.
Yeah, and it's very possible. And of course the Mets. Jim, I got to be honest with you, and I haven't talked to you much about what happened the other night in Milwaukee. That just rewrote Pete Alonso's narrative with the New York Mets, that one swing. Because everybody talks about he's in his walk year this year. He had his worst season since coming up in 2019. And the scary part, his worst season is 34 dingers and 80 somewhere, almost 90 RBIs. That's a bad year for Pete, the way he's played. Scott Boras has to be licking his chops after that one swing, because now that could get Pete more money and, of course, make Scott Boras more commission. But again, another resilient win by this team that started out 24-35.
I disagree.
Really?
And respectfully, and it's not trying to throw dirt on the fact that I absolutely have gone nose blind to the Mets because of your shortstop and fuck him up the ass. I will say that publicly on this show.
If I can interrupt you there.
That was one swing from Alonso that everybody kind of knew was going to happen because Pat Murphy running Williams out there like a fucking idiot might be one of the dumbest moves I've ever seen in the history of postseason baseball.
Really? Why would you not bring in your closer who's been lights out?
He's been anything but lights out the last 6 weeks.
He's only pitched the last 6 weeks.
Even so,
he had a sub 1.5 ERA for the season.
Yeah, but at that particular point, I watched part of that game. The second Alonso hit, swung the bat, I yelled "fuck" at the top of my lungs. I shut my TV off.
That's funny. I didn't yell it, but I said it.
He, at that particular point, you got 2 on, you got nobody out at that point, and he's basically serving up, pitches the size of beach balls at that point, and any one of those guys could have taken him yard. He did not have that, and at that particular point, as deep as their bullpen was, I understand maybe running out your closer, but he's not Emmanuel Clase. He's not Ryan Halsey in St. Louis. He's not lights out, and it's not a guarantee. And unless you've actually got that shutdown closer that's been that consistent all year, which he was not, you'd probably have been better off going with one of your setup men.
Yeah, no, I see your point there, and sorry about that. It sounds like someone's trying to get in the door. My fault. Yeah, no, and I understand that, and I see where you're coming from with that. And I can tell you this: watching the condensed game from the night before, when he 10 pitches was in and out of the 9th inning, getting a save, his changeup, which they call the airbender, which has this crazy dip, it was dipping away from people the night before. Every changeup he threw on Thursday night went into the zone. into somebody's wheelhouse, and it happened to be Alonso who hit the home run. I will say this about Pat Murphy in Milwaukee. There's a lot of people who say he should be the National League Manager of the Year. No. He managed that game like he was managing Tampa Bay in 2020. The pitcher on Thursday night, was it Myers or Jones? I can't remember his last name. The kid who pitched for Milwaukee. He was so good. So good. And he pulled him because he didn't want him running into the third time around the lineup. I don't think it would have mattered. Ohtani just tied it. Sorry, I got the Dodger game.
Yeah, we'll actually talk about it because the Yankees also just went ahead in the 8th.
Shit. But yeah, Ohtani hit a 3-run homer off C, so it's tied in LA. Going back to today,
we're gonna break these series. We're gonna break each of these series down here little by little, but we're starting with your guys.
Yeah, so the Mets get the number 2 seed in the division series, and the Phillies. Little piece of information. First of all, this is the first time the Mets and Phillies have ever played in the postseason against each other. Second, Howie Rose gave a hell of a stat today. The Mets have played the Phillies since 1962. Starting in 1966, they played 1,000 games against each other. Do you want to know what the records are?
Even.
500 and 500. These are two franchises that whenever one is good, the other is dog shit for years and years. And now we're starting the last few years, both teams are good at the same time. Phillies being a far better team throughout the regular season this year than the Mets. But I think the last few weeks, if you look what they've done, remember the Mets played the Phillies 7 times in September. They won 4 games. So this is not a David and Goliath thing. These two teams are pretty evenly matched. And where the Phillies have a better front of the rotation, I think the Mets have better depth in the rotation. Where the Phillies have boppers at the top of the lineup, I think the Mets are more spread out.
Let's get off your guys here for a minute. Is this Bryce Young's best look at a title?
Bryce Harper, you mean?
Yes.
No.
With the way that this team is constructed, if they get past the Mets, which I think that they will, is this his best shot at a title?
No, because I think the 2022 team was better. Bless you.
Thank you.
I think their 2022 team was better for one very simple reason. The 2022 team not only caught lightning in a bottle, they were deeper in the lineup. That team was Harper, Schwarber, Castellanos, Real Muto, Bohm.
Trey Turner?
Turner wasn't on the team yet.
Okay.
But Rhys Hoskins. Oh, no, that was Turner's first year in Philly. Yeah. So Turner, they were 7 All-Stars deep in that team. Now, Bryson Stott was not an everyday player until the latter part of the season. I think their rotation was better. Like they're pitching tomorrow. They're pitching Christopher Rodriguez tomorrow because he's got a 4.5 ERA on the road, and they're pitching Aaron Nola possibly, it depending on how tomorrow goes. But you have 2 possibilities with it. Either one, you're even 1-1, and you're going back and getting the hottest pitcher on the Mets in Sean Manaea, or you're going into Citi Field, which is going to be an insane asylum for down 2-0. And Nola has not pitched well against the Mets his last 6 outings. So it's like, okay, the Phillies ran into the one team they didn't want to see. I think Milwaukee they would have swept, especially with the series going 3 games.
See, I actually agree with that because let's also be honest and let's call a spade here. You guys are playing with house money. You guys, there's no reason you guys should have been playing today.
None. No, there's plenty of reason.
None.
After
the ninth inning shit show that Milwaukee trotted out there on Thursday night, there is no reason you guys should be playing right now.
Well, hold on. Let's go back a day, and let's talk about the 8th inning shit show the Mets trotted out there with a 2-run lead.
In an elimination game, and you throw that guy out there in the 9th inning.
In an elimination game, and you throw Phil Maton in the 8th? Both teams had a chance to close that series out quicker. And it just so happened that a changeup got away. By the way, Jesse Winker may be the biggest asshole in the history of the Major League Baseball. I love him. Did you see what he did after he scored the run?
No, because I shut it off.
He gets
When they tied the game, I shut it off.
He gets up and he slams his helmet, and it goes into like 4 pieces. During game 1, he hits a triple to tie it, and him and Adames are arguing to the point where Willie Adames waited for him in the parking lot. This is going to be an interesting series. I honestly think it's going to go 5. And
there's, the funny thing is that after watching this game and my bias against the Mets aside, this I think is, in my opinion, the matchup of the 2 biggest crybabies in baseball, and that's Bryce Harper and quite honestly, with the way that he was whining about balls and strikes, Pete Alonso.
It's as far as balls and strike go, it's entirely possible.
I actually saw that Alonso took had a few extra words after his strikeout in the 3rd inning. And
that ball was
honestly,
borderline.
Anybody else would have been run.
No, I don't think you run. No, I don't think so.
I get that it's a playoff game, but he can't take that many liberties and slow walk and shake his head and say that many things, even though he didn't get heated. Other guys have been tossed out for a lot less.
True.
You can't do that in the play. I don't care if it's the postseason. You can't show up and umpire like that. And
Very true.
And basically strike out on a pitch and stand in the box and stare at the umpire before you walk out.
Now, I will say this. I did not watch today's game. Because I refuse. Once I saw who was calling the game, no, I'm listening to Howie. And that, quite honestly, you and I had this conversation off the air. I firmly believe if they pull this thing off, Howie Rose is going to retire.
That's actually how I was today. I did not watch today's game. I put on Hammy and Rosie.
Yeah.
Right as I turned the game on, because I was a few minutes late, what's the first thing I heard?
Tom Hamilton's home run.
Swing and a drive, deep left, way back, gone, and it was Thomas's home run.
Yeah, that's when I got it too. So
let's talk about the other 2 matchups going on. We've actually got the Dodgers just went up. The Dodgers just pulled even with the Padres in that one. That's the 2-4 matchup. The Padres won the season series against the Dodgers 8-5. LA was 8-2 in their last 10 to end the regular season and outscored their opponents by 39 runs.
Yeah, they went on an offensive explosion. Of course, Ohtani chasing 60-60 helped with that because he went unconscious for the last 2 weeks of the season. I will say this. The Dodgers are at a definite disadvantage. Their pitching rotation is very, very thin. Yamamoto is, 6 starts maybe off the IL?
Yes.
They're going with Jack Flaherty in game 2, and they have to pitch Walker Buehler in game 3, who is not right coming off the IL. And this may be another
we had news coming out about 2 key pitchers in this series that Clayton Kershaw was shut down, and Joe Musgrove now for the Padres needs Tommy John.
Yes, he does. And I think Manny Machado, he just missed his 2nd home run. So yeah, losing Musgrove is going to be big for San Diego, although they have such depth in that rotation. I mean, Michael King, who they got in the Juan Soto deal, has been lights out for them. You have Darvish, you have Dylan Cease, who's going tonight and really just has thrown 1 bad pitch in the first 4 innings. That ball Ohtani, and actually the ball Ohtani hit wasn't that bad of a pitch.
And let's also be honest. He threw 1 bad pitch against the 1 hitter in baseball you absolutely cannot do that with.
I was playing the show this morning and was doing my career thing, and I threw 2 bad pitches in a start, and Ohtani hit them both over the fence.
I mean, let's be honest. Judge, Hosey, Lindor, Cease throws that pitch. Those guys might actually hit doubles, singles. They're not going to jack it out the way that because let's be honest, that Ohtani is on a different level than any other hitter in baseball right now.
And
Throw that
here's
pitch
the
to Ohtani, you're lucky he didn't put it in the parking lot.
it was a 114-mile-an-hour line drive that got over the fence by about 2 feet. But I will say this, speaking of pitching, um, guess who's been throwing bullpens and maybe ready to pitch the ninth inning for the Dodgers every night?
Ohtani.
Are you kidding me? If they find a way to get to him in the ninth inning, because remember, the Ohtani rule is he can pitch and still hit. So you wouldn't lose the bat if he goes out in the ninth and say gives up a run and he's due up in the next inning.
It's basically the equivalent of putting in a position player in a blowout to pitch.
Exactly. Except this position player throws 100 miles an hour and has a
Right.
wipeout slider.
Let's also actually see. I understand that he's thrown bullpen sessions, he's thrown simulated games, but let's actually see what he actually does, going out there in postseason baseball and not having minor league. See, anybody else coming off of TJ, when Bieber's going to come off of TJ next year, regardless of where he's playing, whether it's in Cleveland or somewhere else, April, May, he's going to be down in the minors somewhere doing rehab. He'll be probably ready in June, maybe July 1. Musgrove is not going to be back at all until 2026, if he's lucky at that point.
Yeah. I will say this. The Mets had that today. Kodai Senga came off the bench, came off the deck and pitched the first 2 innings. Really threw one bad pitch to a guy. If you throw a bad pitch to him, it's going to land in friggin' Jersey, which is gross enough as it is. Let's get to the renewal of the most heated rivalry of the 70s in the Bronx. Remember, the Royals and Yankees played in 5 consecutive ALCSs in the 1970s. All of them ended in fights and some pretty memorable moments. But this is a different Yankee team. This is a different Kansas City team. They both do things a lot differently. What's the score there now, Jim? I know you said the Yankees took the lead.
It was 6-5. It's 6-5, top 8, 2 down, and Kansas City's got a runner on first. Statcast about this game: the Yankees won the season series 5-2. The Royals this season were 32-14 in games where they hit 2 home runs or more,
and they've only hit one tonight. So.
Correct.
Yeah, so let's see if they hit another one. It looks like they've just gone to the bottom of the 8th. If I'm looking at this here.
Yep, middle 8.
Yes, middle of the 8th.
Aaron Judge 0 for 3, a run, a walk, and 2 strikeouts. Juan Soto 3 for 4 tonight, so at least he's doing something.
Yeah, but they got Torres. Gleyber Torres hit a home run that would have been out of any other ballpark besides Yankee Stadium. Of course, the kid from the Royals does the same thing to give them a lead. The interesting thing about this series is I think this is going to be the kind of series where if Bobby Witt gets going, it's not going to be – he doesn't have to hit. The Yankees can't hold runners on. Garrett Cole, first of all, did not look good today. That's a problem because you're going Garrett –
10 hits, 3 earned runs, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts, 80 pitches.
Yeah, that's a problem. For a guy making $300 million who's going to opt out to try and make more money, yeah, that's an issue.
Did you see, speaking of pitches and strikes, did you see the major league record that Wheeler set against you guys today?
I did not. What was that?
27 swinging strikes. The most since we started tracking those in the PitchCast era back in 2008.
Whose record did he break?
I can't even remember, but
it was Roy Halladay from his no-hitter against Cincinnati in the playoffs in 2010.
And he blew it away because I want to say Halladay was like 17 or 18, and he threw 27 of them.
Yeah, he was unreal today. And this is, if I can have the floor for just a second. Hey, Brody Van Wagenen, fuck you, you scumbag son of a bitch. 4-3 San Diego. Possibly 5 because whoever's playing left field for the Dodgers couldn't dig the ball. 5-3 San Diego. Brody Van Wagenen, who did not try to re-sign Zach Wheeler, you piece of shit.
Made him buy his own tickets.
You know what? That was when the Wilpons were running the team, those cheap fucks. Steve Cohen probably would have given him a suite.
Bogarts double to left. Yep.
Yep.
Maryland Tatis Jr. scored 5-3, 5-3 fathers in the third.
Yeah, well, it's 5-3 fathers in the third because Teoscar Hernandez tried to slide and be somebody he's not. To stop it from going to the corner, and he fucking whiffed on it. Just catch the fucking ball.
Cease, yeah, you're right. One bad pitch, 54 pitches, 30 strikes through. Honestly, he's only 2 innings, so he's not going to go very long today. 3 hits, 3 earned run, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts.
No, he's not, but that bullpen for San Diego is really good.
Yes.
Is really good. So if you're, and the Dodgers already have somebody up in the bullpen. If you're the Padres, I think you're more comfortable with that than if you're the Dodgers. Unless Ohtani pitches, then anybody's comfortable.
I mean, everyone in baseball right now has got to tip their cap to Bobby Witt Jr. Because with his late game heroics is why we don't actually have the Houston Astros in the playoffs anymore.
I love that man. Although I think the Gardos would have made quick work. Oh no, they would have had the Tigers either way.
Right. Think about this, is that if he doesn't come through, we've got Yankees Astros divisional series where everyone else would have basically been playing on, CW, and they would have basically found a way to, if baseball had their way, they would have found a way to put all those games on every major network that they've actually got a TV contract with.
Probably.
Which we're going to talk about here in the next segment here.
Yes, we are. So, Jim, let's handicap these things. Taking out game one from the first two and where we're at here. If I had to do the 4, I'm going to be a homer and I'm going to pick the Mets, obviously, but it's not like I'm going out on a limb. They were 6-7 against the Phillies this year and won 4 out of the last 7. So I picked the Mets there. I think everybody and their mother is right. San Diego is going to wipe the floor with the Dodgers. And we're looking at a Mets-San Diego LCS in the National League. The Gardos are going to make quick work of Detroit. And then I think Kansas City's going to get it done.
I don't know if it's going to be quick work, especially with Scooball going on Monday.
I think it's going to be 4.
Yeah,
I think the only game Detroit wins is with Scooball.
I think Yankees and Royals are a toss-up right now.
I like Kansas City.
I'm thinking San Diego and Philly in the National League.
Okay.
I'm thinking
so a rematch of 22.
The Phillies have the bats, and the fact that it's going to be a little bit warmer, like what we talked about last year on the on the whip around with all of the Wisey family, where I gave you your free T-shirt, your participation shirt, because last year it was colder, the ball stayed down. This year it's hotter, that ball's going to stay up, which actually means the Philly bats are going to be able to bop a little bit more.
Yeah, they will. They absolutely will. Let's see what tomorrow brings. If I think you and I can agree, if the Mets get tomorrow, I don't know if the Phillies
5 against the Mets. Yeah, I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But so you've got Philly and San Diego in the National League. I got the Mets and San Diego in the National League. I have a full AL Central LCS. I got the Gardos and I got Kansas City. Who do you got coming out?
I think if you got Cleveland and Kansas City, I got to go Cleveland. And right now, in regards to with the way that I've got forecasting a Philly San Diego,
I'm here so I won't get fined.
I have no problem with either one of them because I'm a fan of players on both of those teams. I would love to see Bryce get one. I would love to see Schwarber, run back again with a team that, not against Cleveland, of course. But I would love to see San Diego finally break through, because you always kind of want to pull for a team to get their first, especially their first in eons. Yes, I get that the Mets have been since '86, and the Phillies actually got one not long ago. San Diego's never had one. Cleveland's going on 70 years. Kansas City, yeah, they got one, about a decade ago. Detroit, got hasn't had one in eons, and the Yankees actually are going on
15 years.
Yeah, 15 years. So as long as it ain't the Dodgers or the Mets right now, or the Yankees, I got no problem with anybody.
Well, I'm calling my dream World Series.
Mets Gardos.
Mets Gardos.
I would like to see Gardos and Padres myself. If you're gonna lose one, if you're gonna lose it to one that's never had it before. Although you don't want the stigmata of breaking exceptionally long droughts like that, like you did in 2016.
True. Now, let me ask you this. In my scenario, what would bother you more? That the Mets got one and I would be insufferable, or that Lindor got a ring? You can push it again. Could you imagine?
Because it's column A, column B, highlighted, bold-faced, italicized, and recolored in hot pink.
Oh my God. All right, so we got some other stuff we got to get to in this thing here. Let's move on in the hat trick.
Because we're looking at probably we're going to be looking at least an hour and 15-minute first segment, because the bulk of the hat trick is going to be the third segment here. But
let's get to the second one. That first one was tough.
For some.
Think about now, celebrity-wise, think about who we lost in 24, 48 hours. We lost Taggart from Beverly Hills Cop. We lost Pete Rose. And who was the third one? There was a third. There was a guy.
Mutombo.
And Dikembe Mutombo, who we'll talk more about in the blast. But listen, he's the most controversial baseball figure not named Joe Jackson. He has the most hits in the history of the game. There are certain things you can say about Pete Rose you just can't argue, and that's the first one. 4256 is a number that will never, ever be touched. It won't be, because first of all, no one's going to play that long, and second of all, no one has that many hits a year.
Right.
Think about it. He played 25 years, and that's almost 200 hits a year.
I wrote about it in the sports note earlier this week. The last player that actually came anywhere close was Jeter, who still finished over 500 hits away.
Yes, he did. The immediate impact of Pete Rose going is, in my opinion, what would be one of the worst things to ever happen is if they put him in. If they put him in after he's gone, I can't think of a more messed up thing. Where did you go?
I'm still here. I went to take a sip. It picked up the coaster and dropped it, and I had no idea where it went.
Jesus. As I'm watching Freddie Freeman steal a bag, I got to turn this off in the background because I keep looking up like I'm a squirrel. Squirrel. Frederick. So yeah, Pete was tough. A lot of the guys our parents watched play. I mean, think about it. We lost Willie Mays this year. We lost Pete Rose. We lost Bill Walton.
Jerry West.
We lost Jerry West.
The following week.
Yeah. As a Met fan, I think of Pete Rose in the 1973 LCS with Buddy Harrelson starting that huge fight. Another combatant from that series, Ed Kranepool, the Mets family lost him just a few weeks ago. So Pete was a shocker to me. So, rest in peace to the Hit King. I hope they don't put him in. I mean, not for nothing. It would be such a slap in the face, and it would be so disrespectful.
I completely agree, and I put this in the sports note.
Excuse me.
You guys can go check that out, and I also uploaded a video where, yeah, it's tragic, but I think because you're going to get a lot of people actually saying now, well, he's not alive any longer. Posthumously, does he go in? That's the Joe Jackson argument, and Joe Jackson that happened 105 years ago, and Joe
Yeah.
Jackson's never going to get in. So if you let Pete
No.
in, you got to let in Joe Jackson, which also means you got to let every single one of the steroid guys in for the damage that they've done to the sport. So baseball does not want that Pandora's box. Keith Olbermann brought up this point, and I completely agree with him. They're not going to let him in, not even so much for the betting on baseball, the sexual assault confirmation and admission that came out of when he sued Jim Dowd after the report came out in '89.
Yeah. Pete was at times a horrible human being. So I mean, it's still not cool. It's like
He made over $1 million a year just in signings.
yeah. And listen, the numbers he put up. I mean, he's the only player in Major League history to play 500 games at 5 different positions. He won world championships for 2 different teams. He made all-star teams for 3 different teams. He was the last player manager in Major League Baseball history.
Major league record for hits, singles, games played, at-bats, and plate appearances.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about over 150 years of baseball, and this guy's still at the top of the list for in those categories.
And also keep in mind when he won his third and final championship as part of that 1980 Phillies team, he led that team at 39 years old in hits, and it wasn't even his team.
Well, it was Mike Schmidt's
That
team.
was Mike Schmidt's team.
Who Howie ran into in the bathroom today during the game. Just throwing it out there.
I mean, you've got the greatest hitter, arguably, in the history of the sport, and he wasn't even the best player on his own team because he was playing with the greatest third baseman in the history of the sport.
And not to mention, he wasn't the best player on the Big Red Machine either, because he was playing with the best catcher in the history of the sport.
Yep. And
Joe Morgan.
And probably a top 10 all-time second baseman.
And Joe Morgan. And the father of the greatest living player we have left. So, rest in peace to Pete Rose. Speaking of Pete Rose and the Cincinnati Reds, we need to get to that second one because I was fucking shocked.
I was shocked for about 2 minutes, and then it actually gave way to just being pissed.
This had Urban going from Florida to Ohio State written all over it. The difference being, and I didn't realize this, Terry Francona played more games for Cincinnati than any other team he played for. I didn't realize that. I also didn't realize that he's a glutton for punishment because now not only does he leave a Guardians franchise that is basically has a chance to be at the top of or near the top of that division every year to a Cincinnati franchise that plays in Kentucky. I mean, it's not
and finished in the basement this year.
They did. And you're going, and now let me throw a little shine on the National League Central. You're going into a division now that has an up-and-coming Pirates team with that really good young core. You have the stalwart Milwaukee Brewers who aren't the sluggers they used to be, and they play defense and run now. You have the St. Louis Cardinals who always find a way to win games somehow when no one fucking expects them to. You're the Chicago Cubs who are quickly rebuilding this thing into a perennial contender, and then you have Cincinnati who just can't seem to get it fucking right. Now, the question is, though, is a guy like Tito, who has the cachet, has the 2 championship rings, has the 3rd appearance in the World Series as the manager of the Guardians, and the success up the road in Cleveland, is he the type of manager who can rein these guys in and bring them to be a better ball club? Or is he just looking to get back into the game because he was sitting home bored?
Second one. First,
I figured
because
you'd
the
say
thing
that.
is when he took over the Guardians, formerly Indians, they had players and they were hovering around 500. They weren't losing 80, 90, 100 games a year. He brought that winning culture there, but there was talent in the cupboard. He's got Ellie De La Cruz, and that's it.
Well, they've got a couple other players that we probably don't know by name because they're not household names. Are you all right over there?
It did it again.
I think it's time for a new coaster, James.
Coaster. That's a phrase that we thought we'd never hear on this show.
We need a new coaster.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I didn't think we would need that. So is that bases loaded top of the ninth? Sorry, I heard a buzz. Yeah, they've got a couple other guys on that team that are actually pretty good. Jonathan Indy is a couple years removed from being the National League Rookie of the Year. They got a couple guys in the outfield that hit for power and play and have some speed. And of course, they have Ellie De La Cruz, which did the Gardos have a player that talented to build around when he took over?
Nobody that talented because he's a once in a generational type player.
Yeah.
But they actually had 3 or 4 guys that basically you put them all together and you've got an Ellie De La Cruz, but they did it with more consistency. So, I mean, let's also be honest. The book is out on Ellie De La Cruz, and he did not have nearly as productive a season this year as he did last, where he basically blew baseball out of the water the second half of the year after coming up. And it's going to basically be up to him to be able to see how far he can carry this team, in years going forward. Can Tito get the kind of production out of him and turn him into the superstar that he did in Cleveland, turning Hosey into one?
Yeah, that's true. The other thing I think of with what he's getting in Cincinnati, he's getting a blank slate. And it seems Tito, when he goes somewhere with a blank slate, he seems to do really well. I mean, think about his last 2 jobs. He goes to Boston after the Grady Little fiasco in 2003. They go out and they get him Kurt Schilling, and he gets a clean slate. Like, here, we're going to give you the tools, get him there, and he got him there. He won a championship. 2 years later,
let's also be honest. When he went there, he had Manram, he had Schilling, he had Poppy. He basically had a team with a payroll that could challenge the Yankees year in, year out. He did not have that with Cleveland, and he damn sure is not going to get that with Cincinnati.
No, agreed. But what I think that Boston did was let him run it his way. And the Guardians definitely let him run it his way. I think Cincinnati's going to do the same thing. David Bell was, in my opinion, a little too hot under the collar, and not quite the tactician that Tito is. So let's see what happens. I mean, listen, you have Diaz at the back end of that bullpen, who could be as good as his older brother once he gets some. He's in like year 2 or year 3. He's still young. You have a decent rotation, and they're all young as well. And Tito's played well with these younger guys. Let's see how he works it out. But I was still very shocked that he came out of retirement.
Can you even really call it a retirement if it was 1 year?
Sabbatical.
That's a better term for it.
Okay. He came off sabbatical, and now he's going to Cincinnati.
Hey, don't get all religious with me, man.
I get the theme song for WKRP in Cincinnati going through my head.
Can we actually start calling him, can we call him Ross Francona with his sabbatical?
Wow.
Is he actually going to come out there going, my Skyline chili? Exactly.
I was thinking more WKRP. Is he Dr. Johnny Fever or is he Les Nessman? I haven't
Les
decided
Nessman.
yet. Yeah, I did. Oh, the humanity.
When he was here, he was Johnny Fever. Now, now the fact of all his medical issues and everything, and
He's Les Nessman.
this is going to be a 2-3 year thing, I guarantee. And I think the reason why he took it is because he knew he's not coming back to Cleveland, and it's close enough to the Cleveland Clinic for when his health issues arise. It's a 3-hour drive up the road.
Yeah. Sorry.
Let's be honest here. If he goes out there and shits the bed, does this tarnish his legacy?
No. And here's why it doesn't tarnish his legacy. You have to take into account what he's got. The reason his legacy will never be tarnished is one reason. He broke the curse of the Bambino. There's nothing after that. You could have 100 lost seasons in 2 different places. You broke the curse. You've won multiple championships with the Boston Red Sox. You set them. Think about it this way. From the time Terry Francona took the job, no one's won as many titles as Boston.
Okay, let me rephrase that. Does this become an afterthought? Much like, does this turn into Montana in Kansas City, Michael
Yes.
in Washington?
Yes. It becomes the afterthought because of his success and by the way, no one's talking about when he did in Philly. Because he was the manager of that Philly team until through the 92 season. Then Fergosi took over and took him to the World Series. So Tito brought that Philly team to where they were ready to go, and they made a change, and he went from there. So when you talk about what his bookends are, Philly and Cincinnati, you're probably never going to talk about. What you're going to talk about is a run of success in Boston, unlike anything they've seen since pre-freaking World War I, and a 10-year stretch in Cleveland where he was the best manager in baseball for the majority of it. That's what you're going to talk about. Yeah, he went to Cincinnati at the end of his career because he didn't feel like sitting the fuck home. Okay.
He got retired. He was retired and he was looking for a part-time job to get out of the house. And that's basically what it is. He's got a part-time JV squad, and he's just looking for payout right now. Because you can't expect that he's going to be able to turn them into what Milwaukee is right now.
No, he's not. Because also at the same time, think about Milwaukee. Milwaukee's also had a very good front office for years. Cincinnati has not had a good front office on either team in Cincinnati for years. So, I mean, yeah, they're boned. So, James, I will let you take it from here, and you can talk about the bullshit that is Bally Sports better than I can.
So, Diamond Sports Group, who brands themselves as Bally Sports, we all know that they declared bankruptcy just prior to last season for not only baseball, hockey, and the NBA, where they actually had the market cornered for the better part of 50 franchises. They still operate for about 10 to 12 NHL teams. They've basically told 11 teams that we're not renewing a contract with you for 2025. And the only team that will be actually carried on a Bally Sport network for baseball next year are going to be the Atlanta Braves. 3 teams, including Cleveland, had contracts that expired after the end of this year, and everybody else was operating on 1-year deals for 2025. And they decided, nope, not doing it.
Let's talk about this for just a moment. Let me say this. If you're going to hitch your wagon to the Atlanta Braves, like all these young players who sign these long-term deals are, I want to know what the Braves have on you.
Turner money.
Did the head of Bally get stuck at the strip club with Dwight Howard like the rest of these kids did?
The 19th hole, as John Cena put it.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can find the story because they break down all the teams that they actually bought out, that they dropped here.
That's crazy. So I honestly think, speaking of Cincinnati, maybe the Gardos and the Reds need to get into bed together and make an Ohio sports network and carry things like the Gardos, the Reds, the Cavs.
Well, they used to actually. It used to be called Fox Sports Time Ohio um, before Disney bought all those Fox networks when Fox basically sold them off, and then Bally bought that out. Okay, so according to Alden Gonzalez, ESPN staff writer, back on the second, Diamond says it would. Uh, said in court it will keep its contract with the Atlanta Braves and drop the Tampa Bay Rays, Detroit Tigers, and they are prepared to move forward as a business without other teams in the portfolio of the Angels, Reds, Marlins, Cardinals, Royals, Brewers, Guardians, Twins, and Rangers. The Rangers, Guards, Twins, and Brewers had their deals expire after the end of this regular season, and then the Reds, Angels, Cardinals, Royals, and Marlins are on a joint venture agreement, which could trigger legal action if Diamond drops those agreements. They also they hold rights to 13 NBA teams and 8 NHL teams, and recently dropped the Dallas Mavericks and the Pelicans.
Well, you had mentioned something that the Mavericks were going to possibly do with a streaming service with like the Stars and somebody else.
Correct. The Dallas Stars and the Anaheim Ducks of the NHL have actually now entered into what is known as Victory Plus, a new sports streaming service. And there's talk that of these other teams that were dropped, and then also the uncertainty with some of these other NHL and NBA teams that are operating almost year to year at this point. When Diamond declared bankruptcy to the tune of, I want to say it was like $4 billion or something like that.
Mhm.
That a lot of these other teams could actually be looking to possibly, you could actually see a scenario where, like what the Padres did, where their TV rights got taken over by uh, Major League Baseball themselves. You could see them do local television. You could see them sign up with a new pairing, because I want to say an antitrust or something shot down the proposed Disney, Fox, and Warner TV, that giant streaming service, because they were going to charge, I want to say, like $50 a month for that.
Yeah, I remember you and I talking about it. But yeah, it was going to be way too expensive. I mean, Disney Plus has gone stupid.
I mean, it's $11 a month. I mean, I love that I can get
It's
all.
18.
What's that?
It's 18.
Well, for Disney Plus, because I think you got the bundle, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay, I only have the ESPN Plus, so it's like just shy of 11 for me, because I
Okay.
don't watch Disney or what else is on there. Discover, and it's not
Hulu.
Discovery. Hulu.
Hulu.
Okay. Yeah, I only use it for the ESPN Plus for the NHL coverage.
Which, if you're talking about teams that are going to start their own streaming services, you may want to look into that anyway, so you can watch those teams. Here's my question about this, and this is just throwing it out there for you. The Yankees have yes, the Mets have SNY. You have other teams in, like, the Dodgers have their own. I'm pretty sure.
The Diamondbacks are on AT&T Sportsnet. You got some other
Yeah.
teams that run Comcast,
Well,
like the White Sox.
the Diamondbacks got their own problems. You see, they're having an issue with the stadium lease and their owners calling out the bad free agent signings.
Right. Yep.
Why doesn't anyone now? I'm going to use Cleveland as an example. Okay, you have 3 professional teams. 2 of them are worth watching, and the third one is just comedy theater. You would think that the 2 smart people who run the first 2 franchises would talk to the stupid moron who runs the third and start their own shit.
Yeah, but that wouldn't actually happen, because with the NFL, the TV rights are only controlled by 4 networks.
I'm not talking about that because on SNY you have pre and post game for the Jets. You have basically you're the local affiliate for that team. You don't broadcast the games, but you have your pre and post game show on there. You have your specials on there for them. So if you did something like that where you're broadcasting Cavs games, you're broadcasting Guardians games, and you're doing the pre and post game for the Clowns, you could sustain it and you could bring those teams to people in Ohio who don't have to have a special streaming service just to watch their fucking teams.
I mean, it would definitely, make sense because, look at some of the other markets. St. Louis has got two teams in there, and both are Bally properties with the Cardinals, who Diamond just backed out of, and the uncertainty with the Blues. You look at the Dallas teams. Moving over to Victory Plus. Who's to actually say that the Mavericks don't actually negotiate something for that after they got kicked to the curb?
Homeboy's going to be in on that.
Oh yeah. It's Detroit was one. You've got the Pistons, the Red Wings, and the Tigers that were all Bally properties, Bally Sports, Great Lakes they called it. They're going to be moving. You've got Minnesota, who I believe is also part of that as well. So you've got the Wild, the Bucks, and the Brewers that were all, under that Bally umbrella.
But what I'm saying makes sense, right? That if you did, because first of all, baseball is a regional game. Let's just baseball is a regional game. The NBA can become a regional game because right now it's a national game that you don't see many teams outside of the big boys. The draft coverage proves that the Lakers are still the number one, and you got the Celtics who just won a title. And after that, you have, we'll talk about the Knicks in the blast. But you have quality teams that could set up with other quality teams. I mean, if you had a network in that garbage state that you had coverage for the Pistons, the Red Wings, the Tigers, and the pre and post game stuff for the Lions, you have 4 teams in Detroit. Why the hell aren't you doing it? You do the same thing in Cleveland, and like with what SNY does, they also do the local college scene. So you're talking, St. John's, Hofstra, Big East basketball. They do a lot with. If you have something like that up there, you're talking about or even in Cleveland, you're talking you do all the pro stuff, and then you get more coverage on John Carroll, Mountain Union. You get more coverage on Cleveland State basketball, which is a great program.
Right.
You can cover the college hockey, which is big in the Midwest with Ohio State and Wisconsin and Notre Dame and all those boys. If you do these regional networks, you have a way to actually make money, not just because of broadcasting games, but all the other stuff.
Let's before we move on to the main event of tonight's show, if this were to start affecting other leagues, if they basically if DSG is going to completely pull out of baseball, and we actually have now started to see the trickle down effect a little bit in the NBA, who do you think is actually going to be the one to step up? Are we talking Comcast? Are we talking AT&T? Are we talking Time Warner? Are we talking? Are we looking Disney? Because all of those guys have the money. I don't think it's going to turn into a bidding war, but who would, I think Comcast puts on a very good telecast, Comcast NBC, but it's going to be very interested where all of this splinters off.
I think your answer is Turner. Turner's going to have a lot of money to spend because they're not going to get they don't have the basketball contract now. If Turner was smart, and this is just again my opinion, if Turner was smart, you take your national basketball thing and you turn it into regional stuff. You turn it into Turner now controls Ohio, Michigan, Illinois, Missouri. You can control Texas. You can control, and you make up your national audience stuff that you lose by doing all the regional stuff. and you start making these teams that are regional darlings, like the Cavs, like the Guardians, like the for even the Bengals and the Reds, you can make them
And the crew,
bigger.
and let's go nuts. Let's add the crew in there, even though soccer's not a sport.
Apparently, it's good enough to get a fourth season out of Ted Lasso. Oh God. So no, I think Turner would be a very, very good match for something like that. They're gonna have the time. I mean, I'd love to see Chuck doing a regional thing.
I mean, some of them have, it's only, you notice though, it's only certain markets, and like Florida's got Sunshine Network. The tri-state area's got Yes and MSG, which are their own.
NSNY, yeah.
It's Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. Really, all of Pennsylvania is Comcast territory.
Yep.
AT&T is out in Vegas and the deserts. So you don't really have to worry too much about that. It's a lot of those Midwest and Rust Belt areas: Nashville, Cleveland, Detroit, Milwaukee, St. Louis, Cincinnati, Atlanta to an extent. Those are a lot of those markets that are saturated with that, with Diamond and Bally, and they're going to be the ones scrambling here, because not only is if it was one team, it was fine, but every city that I mentioned, there's got at least two teams that are affected. Now, granted, Nashville's only got the Predators, but you've also got to incorporate the entire state of Tennessee, and you're talking about the Grizzlies as well.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to mention. If you bring the Grizzlies into it, listen, you have the ability.
Another one, Charlotte.
Yep. But now let's talk about some of the other Midwest stuff, and we're at an hour already. We got to get to the main event. But think about it this way. Let's talk about something like Tennessee. Wrap college football into it. You'll make a ton of money.
I mean, the major networks there already have their TV deals. I think the Vols actually have their own network for a lot of their other sports, kind of like Longhorn Network does. So, I mean, I think they've got something there. And then you also figure some of the smaller schools, like your Tennessee States, like Murray State down there, they'll actually they'll be broadcast on ESPN Plus. So I mean, there's opportunity there. But it's going to be very interesting to see. But Michael, you are correct. We actually need to move on to the main event, and the part of the year that I look forward to more than any other. Every team will start up on Tuesday, but we had the official opening of the regular season yesterday across the pond. The 2024-2025 NHL season has begun. You had a 2-game series between the New Jersey Devils and the Buffalo Sabres taking place in what they call the Global Series. There will be another game where two teams will actually head over, I want to say, to Finland the first week in November, but hockey is officially back.
You sound like me opening day for baseball. Good. I'm very happy that it's here. We've talked about a lot of hockey the last year. We really have. And I know we talked about we're going to do more. So let's get into this. I want to start with something that's not listed on the bottom. Being the bleeding heart nostalgia person, is Brodeur's kid going to make the team?
No.
Okay.
Because he's playing in New Jersey, and that's actually the first thing I've actually got loaded up on my list. New Jersey had arguably, it wasn't the biggest free agent signing. We will talk about that because we talked about it when it originally happened back in July. But people also forget, back in the early part of July, the New Jersey Devils made a trade with the Calgary Flames to land Jacob Markstrom. could the New Jersey Devils be a dark horse to come out of the Eastern Conference right now with all of that talent?
I think
After not
so.
having made the playoffs the last 3 years.
Yeah, I think so. I think the Panthers are going to be a little tired. You're talking about a run to the Stanley Cup 2 years ago, to the finals, a run to win the finals this year. That's a lot of hockey. That's a lot of play. It's what you worry about with a lot of teams, be it NFL. I mean, that's the big thing with if you go to the NFL just for a second, that's the big thing that people are talking about with Kansas City is that 3 straight runs to the Super Bowl is almost impossible. I think they're going to do it, but that's just me.
They're already 4-0 and on their way now. I mean,
with every
yeah, but the thing, I mean, they always say it's how many, not how. In certain instances, they're already 4-0. They've struggled in 3 of them. 4-0 is still 4-0. It's a let's actually see what happens with the Vikings over across the pond at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. Can they get to 5-0?
they're playing the Jets. Of course, they're going to get the 5-0. But yeah, that's a lot of hockey. And then you include on there some of these guys do play internationally as well. So I want to say the Devils and the Rangers are going to be threats in the Eastern Conference just because the Rangers may have one of the top 3 goaltenders. And well, not even maybe. They do have one of the top 3 goaltenders in the league in Shesterkin. But I think with what the Devils are amassing, yeah, they can make a run.
I think right now that's the biggest storyline right now for the Rangers to be able to get past the hump and win and win the Eastern Conference. Their biggest news is that Shesterkin is an unrestricted free agent after this season. They've got to get a deal done, and you never want to have your number 1 all-world goaltender who won the Vezina 2 years ago and actually was a finalist last year to eventual winner Connor Hellebuck in Winnipeg.
Yeah.
And I think Hellebuck absolutely deserved it. Even though that the Jets went out in the first round and the Rangers made a little bit of a run themselves.
Well, they were at the Eastern Conference Finals, right? They lost to Florida.
But you never want to actually have contract negotiations unless they're basically going to like announce something. They're going to basically kind of pull a Dak Prescott, and he's basically going to get his payouts right before the season starts. Now, Shesterkin, I want to say, is 33 years old, so it's going to be one of the last big paydays. But here's a guy who's just been him, Connor Hellebuck, Bobrovsky. They've been, you notice the names that I put up there, they're award winners, and they've been the poster child for consistency really this entire decade so far.
Yeah. No, I agree. I didn't realize Shesterkin was that old. But then I realized he did sit behind Lundqvist for a couple of years too, right?
Yep.
So, yeah. So there's not many miles on Shesterkin because he did sit behind Lundqvist, who was a top flight goaltender his entire career. I will say this. I am interested to see how far down the Pittsburgh Penguins fall. You're talking about the end of the career of Sidney Crosby. Malkin is still there, if I remember correctly, but he's getting old too.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought them up. Go ahead.
Who was the third member of that triumvirate that won those cups for them?
Marc-Andre Fleury, Jake Gensel,
Fleury.
What's his name? Phil Kessel.
That's it. But Kessel, he's gone, right?
I want to say Kessel's one of those hired guns out there that basically sits for the first half of the year. I don't know if he's officially retired. I think he went the AC Green route.
He was a virgin till marriage?
Shut up. He's a UFA right now. He's not officially retired. He's 37, but he'll sit out the first month and a half, and then he'll sign with somebody.
Yeah, and he'll spend the next 2 months getting in shape, and then he'll be
kind of like what Patrick Kane did last year.
Yes. Did I read it right? Is he back in Chicago?
Yes.
Okay.
With Philadelphia, those 2 guys we're talking about here, Crosby and Gino, they're up for a couple of major milestones this year. Sidney Crosby, needs 8 goals this season to hit 600 for his career.
Wow.
He's 4 points away from 1,600.
Wow.
Gino needs 29 goals to hit 500.
Jesus.
This could be, even though I think Pittsburgh may possibly squeak their way into the playoffs, I think you're right. I think they fall back a little bit from a lot of people's expectations. I think it's going to be a historic year in the Steel City, but not in the way that people think. I think it's going to be a lot of personal milestones as opposed to team milestones, because this is not your Pittsburgh Penguins anymore that you remember 5, 6, 7 years ago when it was basically them in Chicago every other year going for the cup.
Yeah. Speaking of milestones, what's the counter on Ovechkin?
Alex Ovechkin is 41 goals behind Wayne Gretzky, needs 42 to pass. He scored 31 goals in 79 games last year. Down year for him, and yet we're still saying for a guy who had 31 goals, he's also 50 points away from 1,600 himself.
Jesus. There was one other one you were talking to me about, and I can't remember what it was now. So let's hop over to
Let's talk a few other milestones here.
That's okay. That's 'cause I know you mentioned other ones.
Connor McDavid is 27 years old. Connor McDavid is 18 points away from 1,000 in his career, which is basically unofficial criteria to get into the Hockey Hall of Fame.
Already with 1,000 points.
Sergei Bobrovsky, fresh off of a Stanley Cup championship, is 4 wins away from 400. Jonathan Quick, backing up Shesterkin in the Big Apple, is 7 wins away from 400.
He'll get that.
And yeah, it'd be nice to actually see both of them. I mean, I'd like to see Quickie get there certainly before the All-Star break, and actually he can decide if the Rangers want to move him, at the deadline, if they want to hold on to him, if he wants to hang him up. But I would think that Quickie getting to 400 like that would be the last thing he really needs. He's got a Conn Smythe. He's got 2 cups with the Kings. 400 wins is the last thing that's remaining on his resume.
Yeah. No, I agree with you there. I mean, there's really not much left to prove, especially if you're backing up Shesterkin. That would actually be a huge thing for him, because I don't think Igor's going to want to come off the ice, but get Quickie is 7 wins.
Andrei Vasilevsky in Tampa, 7 wins away from 300.
Jesus.
Connor Hellebuck, fresh off of a Vezina Trophy, is 25 wins away from 300.
Wow.
Let's actually look at coaching here. Fresh off a Stanley Cup, Paul Maurice, the 4th winningest coach in the history of the NHL, is 31 wins away from 900. And back in Buffalo, for the first time in nearly 2 decades, it seems, Lindy Ruff is back with the Buffalo Sabres, and he is 36 wins away from 900.
Jesus, Lindy Ruff, that's an old name. Who's got the most ever? Is it Scotty Bowman?
Scotty Bowman, nobody's ever going to catch him. I want to say he's up over 1,100.
Jesus. Paul Maurice have to coach 5 more years, if not more.
Easily. I think Paul Maurice can approach there, especially with the talent that Florida's got. And, everyone remembers that Bowman won all those titles with Detroit. And they were playoff caliber and top seed and going and making deep runs in the finals year after year after year. But Paul Maurice, epitome of consistency with everywhere he's ever been. Carolina, Winnipeg, Florida the last 2 years. I mean, let's remember.
He started young too, right?
Yeah. Let's remember, after he walked away from the Jets, people were wondering if he was ever really going to coach again. And then he gets an offer he can't refuse, comes back and is in the Stanley Cup Finals his first 2 years down in Sunrise, and has got himself his first title with arguably one of the best post-game cup raising celebrations you've ever seen.
Absolutely. If I can interrupt real quick, 6-5 Dodgers.
Shit.
That game's gonna go. That game's gonna go back and forth. Um, let's. Any more milestones before we jump into the next thing, Jim?
Um, not in terms of numbers, but now we can actually start breaking down, the season and moves that were made.
I want to talk about the biggest move, which was the Coyotes going to Utah. I did see a picture. Is it that Utah's ice arena has obstructed view seating?
Yeah, but they when they made the move, it's not like it's certainly better than what the option were in um in Arizona. Them going to Arizona State and Tempe there, where basically they had to go on the road for the first month of the season so they could actually build hockey of NHL equivalent type locker rooms. It's better. It's a better scenario than when the Islanders got forced into Barclays for that absolute shit show for several years until UBS got built. But they actually, when they made the move, owner Ryan Smith gave the NHL a guarantee. It said, give us 2 years or at least give us a year, and we'll be able to get that attendance bump from 11,000 up to about 14,000. So since, they actually have the rights to the Delta Center, there's also talk that they could be building a new, arena that would be a little bit more hockey ready, which certainly would benefit the Jazz a lot more with the Jazz on the come up. But it's definitely a work in progress. But there are going to be some obstructions just because of how fast this moved, because you can't really do that level of construction. And at least the saving grace is that you've got the two inhabitants of that building play at the exact same time.
Yeah, it's true. That's very true. So you do have the same exact amount of time to plan out any kind of construction or changes, as opposed to going from one season into the next, where you got to keep it rolling.
My only concern would be them trying to fit that arena, and then they get funding, and then basically they're pouring money into renovating the inside of the arena, only to turn around and actually have to go into a new building 2 to 3 years later anyway.
Yeah, that would be shitty.
I don't want to say
Speaking
shit, but it's. I mean, in terms of the predicament, yeah, it's shitty, but
of inconvenient,
yeah, exactly, incredibly inconvenient, especially on the former Coyote, now Utah Hockey Club, and more than likely what we've heard as of when we last came to you guys, more than likely going to be known as the Utah Yetis, unofficially through this season and officially by next summer.
yeah. Decent name too.
Little cliche, but a little on the nose, but better than some of the other options out there, because anyone who actually was thinking to keep them Utah Hockey Club, you need to actually sell your season tickets, and also you should not be allowed to watch sports, because that's the same level of people that wanted Washington football team to stay. This is not soccer.
No. So Jim, the Fanatics uniforms, which was a debacle in Major League Baseball, apparently seems to be pretty damn good in the NHL. And again, you and I have broken down ad nauseum the amazing new Ducks uniforms. I love those jerseys. If I wore hockey sweaters, I would buy one. I don't. It's too damn hot down here. I barely wear the baseball jerseys I own. Just saying that. I will say this. The other ones I've seen look like they are in far better shape. And you were talking price points to me at one point in time. The price points on the website on Fanatics seem far better than what I had anticipated. Have you gotten any of the new ones yet, or are you still rocking? You got the old ones you're rocking still?
Actually, the funny thing is that here, every single one of these, with the exception of my Islanders jersey, those are all what they call the breakaway jerseys. So those are the most affordable of the three. They usually retail between 100 and 130. And that has the more elastic type material. That's what they kind of refer to as the replica jerseys. The This is what they actually kind of refer to as the premier style, even though that the Islanders have retired this one, and this is not a Fanatics. So this was an Adidas.
Oh, I didn't know you had yours. I
What's
didn't know
that?
you had it. I didn't know you had it customized. That's cool.
I actually had this one from DH Gate, like that overseas drop site, which ironically enough, I can't find any jerseys on there anymore. It doesn't matter what it is. I actually tried to find a Guardian City Connect jersey that was on there over the summer and now not anymore.
Damn.
But these are actually what they kind of refer to as the premier. They're a little bit heavier weight. They don't have as much elasticity to them. They've actually got like the fight straps sewn into them,
Nice.
but they don't have the reinforced shoulders and the sleeves where you would actually see secondary stitching. So these are the more premier, whereas the on ice, you'll actually see the contrast stitching for the reinforcement on the shoulders and the elbows. The actual and as again we talked about a few weeks ago, and there's a lot of the players actually liking the look, the feel, and the fit of these new on ice jerseys now by Fanatics. And with baseball, I've actually seen that they're going back to all of the changes that were before Nike got their hands on them for next year.
Yeah, no, they're going back to what I call the majestic versions. Bigger letters, stuff like that. It's gonna be a good move. So did have the last big free agency signing? Is it Celebrini, the one that went to San Jose? Was the big? There was a one recently.
Macklin Celebrini was the first overall pick.
That's right.
In this year's past draft, and I'd like to actually see him see what he would do. I think Connor Bedard actually had a little bit better scenario because he had a few extra, pieces around him in Chicago. I still think the Blackhawks, not even out of spite with my love of the Blues being dog shit. I would like to actually see, the Blackhawks stay in the basement as long as humanly possible, which is going to be hilarious considering with everything that's come out. They somehow miraculously get the number one pick in the draft. They get a Crosby-esque type player to save hockey in their city and get granted a Winter Classic again, where they actually will be playing my Blues on January 2nd. Or actually,
where's that? Is that one at Soldier, Wrigley? Where's that one at? Wrigley? Okay.
But I would actually like to see what kind of, Celebrini doesn't have the same level of, pieces along with him. He's basically going into a bare cabinet. But I'm hoping he actually, I don't think that he's going to be as generational and transformative a player as Connor Bedard has got the ability to do. But I could definitely see him being a lot more like an Adam Fantilli in Columbus, who unfortunately now has become the face of that franchise at just 20 years old.
Yeah, no, that definitely unfortunate. If you had to go out on a limb and say there was one thing you were looking for this season, just one storyline that you would want to see hit, what do you want that to be?
Basically, what these big name, these top 15, top 20 teams, what they're going to do after this, two sides to the coin here. I want to see what some of these teams that have a lot of their core guys and these big name guys who are very, very close to seeing their contracts expire, what these teams are going to do. And then also on the flip side, these teams that went out and got big names, what's going to happen with them? So I've got The last thing I've got on my notes here, I've got 4 teams where they went out and had massive free agency, either periods or storylines that's going to basically hang over the entire year. And I'm going to start with the Toronto Maple Leafs, as much as nobody can stand the Toronto Maple Leafs. Austin Matthews signs the 4-year contract extension. John Tavares and Mitch Marner, the other two of the other members of that core 4, are unrestricted free agents after this season. And I think you're going to see at least one of those guys not be a part of that franchise by the trade deadline, because they don't have the money to re-sign both of them, or either of them for that matter, I think.
10-second hypothetical. Tavares back to the Islanders or no?
If that were actually ever to happen, I think John Ledecky, I think Katie Ledecky would disown John Ledecky.
Fair.
I think John Tavares actually moves on and kind of becomes a hired gun, where he goes somewhere like for 2 years and then moves on and becomes a journeyman who never wins a cup at this point.
Is that what you're hoping for?
And deservedly so, for selling the Islanders up the river like he did.
I was going to say, is that what you're hoping for?
John Tavares, Frankie Lindor, dead heat.
Really?
Taking the money and run and stabbing your franchise in the back that made you famous? Absolutely.
At least Lindor got them a player in return.
Yeah, Tavares definitely didn't, but both of them left their previous organizations high and dry for the foreseeable future. And I understand that they don't really owe anybody anything with that, but nobody would have known who John Tavares was, and they bent over backwards. They gave him captaincy. They gave him massive payouts. He scored the biggest goal in the last 30 years in that franchise, in game 6 on Bobby Lou, to basically break that drought to get them into the second round. And that's what he does a year later.
Yeah, no, I agree. I understand. And I understand your anger about Lindor. I've seen it happen with Jose Reyes. I saw it happen too. I know. What about another one?
Jake DeBrusk leaving the Boston Bruins and heading to an absolutely loaded Vancouver Canucks team on a 7-year contract.
Is that normally outside of the one that they're still paying the goalie from the Islanders? Is that normally how? Yeah, the longest NHL contracts are about 7 years.
Pretty much, it's 7-8 years, somewhere in there, because there's another guy who signed for just as long that we're going to talk about here in a second. But Jake DeBrusk, basically kind of on the same, with one of the 3 Hughes brothers, and as good as Vancouver's been, I would like to see maybe this is the year that Vancouver finally breaks the stigma and gets through. There are few teams in the West now that are going to be as talented from top to bottom, first line to fourth line, in forwards, net, everything, that the Vancouver Canucks.
Is Vancouver your dark horse in the Western Conference to come out and win the thing?
I don't think they're as much of a dark horse as people think. I actually think that if they're not the favorite, they're on the first line.
Even with Connor Bedard in Edmonton?
Connor McDavid?
Connor McDavid, excuse me.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes. And as a matter of fact, I'm glad you brought them up, because that's going to be the next one we talked about. Leon Draisaitl signs an 8-year, $112 million extension on an average value of $14 million a year. Connor McDavid's a UFA after next season, not this season, but the 2025-20. So the summer of 2026, Connor McDavid is going to be the highest paid man in the history of the NHL.
Would you be pissed if
the hometown discount? But what people
are going to be pissed if it's New York?
What's that?
You can be pissed if it's the Rangers?
I think he'd be a sellout if he went to the Rangers, but I think the Rangers right now, with all the money that they've got tied up in what they're going to end up paying Shesterkin, They've actually still got to figure out what they're going to be doing with the Breadman or Artemi Panarin. They got to figure out what's going on with Capo Caco. That whether or not they're going to put more money into him. They paid Adam Fox.
The bread man.
The Rangers, as good as they are, with some of their other big names, they're I don't want to say they're approaching Leafs territory, but they're in a little bit of a state of flux right now.
Gotcha.
But,
I hear him looking to leave at his age, and you know who I thought of.
I mean, everyone immediately thinks, L.A., Toronto, New York.
Well, not even that. It would be the Mark Messier career progression. You go from Edmonton to the Rangers.
What people also forget about the Oilers, and this is not touting my own horn here, but it's the only free agent moves that my Blues made the entire offseason that made a damn was the Blues signed defenseman Philip Broberg and forward Dylan Holloway away from the Edmonton Oilers on offer sheets, which really does not happen.
Okay.
And then the Oilers had 7 days to match, knowing that they were in salary cap hell coming right off of that Draisaitl deal. They don't match, and the Blues get both of those guys on 2-year contracts to be able to shore up, especially with both of those players being 23 or younger, and now going on to a Blues team that needs young talent while also stripping away 2 key components and young talent that gave them good minutes and production throughout the playoffs last year in their run up to Game 7 against Florida. And oh yeah, it was Doug Armstrong just basically saying a big old one final fuck you to Stan Bowman, for all the years that Bowman basically screwed the Blues as the general manager of the Blackhawks. Now he's over in Edmonton. And the other thing about the Blues, the biggest name that came out, the biggest move that the Blues made was not that. It was the announcement of the retirement of longtime fan favorite Alexander Steen, who is actually now the special assistant to the general manager, Doug Armstrong. And Armstrong is going to be retiring after the end of next season, to where Steiner is now going to learn from him for 2 years and then take over the job in the Gateway City.
That you put fan favorite in the chair. That's a nice move. That's a very nice move. Jim, if you had to pick one team that you really would like to see win a cup, which Canadian team do you want to see break the streak? It's been 30 years. It's basically all Gary Bettman's bullshit tenure. Which Canadian team would you like to see break that streak?
I'm going to answer that twofold. I'm going to go head and I'm going to go heart.
Okay. What's your head tell you?
I'm going to start with my head. I would like to see the Vancouver Canucks break through.
Okay.
I think arguably they're the most talented of the 7 Canadian teams, because I also think getting your first would always be great. I don't think Edmonton's got enough in them, especially running as far as they did. Calgary is on the come up. Ottawa's Ottawa's got a lot of work ahead of them. Toronto would be absolutely insufferable.
Yes.
Not hear the end of it for the next 75 years, regardless of how many more that they win afterwards.
Yankees, Cowboys, Lakers, Maple Leafs. About the same?
Pretty much.
Okay.
The one team that I left off there, Hearts, the Winnipeg Jets. I think any team that's running Connor Hellebuck out there, and especially they just need one or two pieces, and I think the Jets could be a dark horse to win that, to break the streak. I would love to see it, especially after following the franchise from the doldrums down in Atlanta. the tough years with the move to Winnipeg, the lack of attendance issues up there at formerly the MTS Center, where it was basically a converted minor league arena. And once they actually renovate Salt Lake, the Jets are going to be back to having the smallest arena in the NHL at just over 14,000. I would love to see the Jets break through, but I honestly think that Vancouver's got the best shot of the 7 Canadian teams.
Okay.
The last,
I thought you were going to say Edmonton with your heart because you want to see McDavid get a cup. But
I would definitely love to see McDraisaitl, but I don't know if they've got that kind of run in them for a second year.
Gotcha.
The one team, and you know me, I never ever, and you've seen with such vitriol that I've had against the guys that you're wearing and who you pull for, of teams going out and spending all kinds of money trying to break the bank and buy a title. I could make an exception this year for the Nashville Predators.
Okay.
I think after landing Ryan O'Reilly last year, I'm never going to be able to say anything bad about Ryan O'Reilly, except for, for the cup of coffee he had in Toronto. He got me a cup. He was a focal point of my Sabres, on the come up in his career. Him going to Nashville last year was basic. If he doesn't go to Nashville and he's not such good friends with, some of the other guys around the league, and he's not as respected and liked, Nashville does not land Steven Stamkos away from after 16 years in Tampa, and they don't land a former Conn Smythe winner and Jonathan Marchessault from the Vegas Golden Knights.
Okay.
I think Nashville's got all the talent in the world on paper by name recognition. I just don't know how it's going to translate with these guys now in their mid-30s. Marchessault is 33. Stamkos, I want to say, is even older than that. Ryan O'Reilly, I want to say, is 33, 34. That's a lot of veteran talent that's had a lot of great numbers and a lot of great success. You've got Stamkos has got 2 cups in Tampa. Granted, I think he was injured for one of them. He was the captain of those teams. Marchessault's got a Conn Smythe. Ryan Riley's got a Conn Smythe for the only times that their franchises ever won a cup. Ironically enough, in within a 5-year period. Marchessault won a cup with the captain of the Blues during that cup run in Alex Pietrangelo. But Nashville's only got 1 Stanley Cup Finals appearance, and that was 2016. It wasn't 2016 because I remember I blogged about it. It was 20.
Was it 18?
It was 2017. When they lost to Pittsburgh in the most uninteresting Stanley Cup Finals I think I may have ever seen in my lifetime. I don't know if Nashville's got enough to get past Colorado, Dallas, even Winnipeg. I think they may have a little bit more in the tank than Winnipeg, but I think Colorado comes back to earth a lot more, although you can never bet against Cale Makar. I think Landeskog coming back is going to be a nice addition for them after injury. But I think Nashville's got the poise that once you get into the playoffs, you can never count out that level of experience, no matter how much talent you have during the regular season. I think if they get in, if they're a top 3 in the Central, I think that they've got a potential to make any kind of run, because we actually saw how up and down this was, where really the Panthers didn't win a division. That was the Boston Bruins. We saw how susceptible the Bruins have been the last 2 years. I think the Bruins run at the top is over. I agree with you. I think the Bruins are the team that take the biggest step back this year. I think for me, if I had to take a team who was nobody was really talking about and could make a push forward, There's a part of me that might want to think the Ottawa Senators have the possibility of getting in. Some people were going to say Detroit, but I think Detroit falls back because Detroit has not made the playoffs in several years. And I think that they were right on the cusp last year, but I think they actually take a step back and they're not just a lottery team. They might be a bottom third team this year.
Wow.
There's just something
That's
about the
interesting.
Red Wings that I think that they take a massive step back this year.
Okay. Well, because I know they were very close to getting in last year. And people were making, when you get very close, people usually think you take the next step the next year. But I can see that because they really didn't improve much with the free agent class. They didn't have as high a draft pick as they would have because they did get pretty close. What's their minor league system like? Is it got talent in it, or are they just kind of waiting?
I mean, Grand Rapids, Grand Rapids they've got some talent, but this is not, they haven't done a very good job of kind of developing a lot of this talent. They've got some guys who have, but that's never really been Detroit hockey. It's always
Yeah,
been, use some of these guys, bring them up, see if one sticks. If it doesn't jump straight out of the blocks, we're not going to spend too much, and we're going to actually take this guy and we're going to package him up. And we're going to go get somebody big.
gotcha. Well, you have broken down a season that I am looking forward to as well, now that I have access to watch some of these games again. I will be sitting down to watch some hockey this year, especially I got anyone's on Fox if they do any. Got them on here. Got Peacock on the TV and the tablet. So I will be getting into it again. We will talk a lot of hockey on the show this coming season. That's right. That's next week. Oh shit, that's next fucking week.
Yeah, it's the 10th is I want to say next Thursday.
Yep.
Yeah, next Thursday, I actually, the Sabres will actually, make the trek back to Western New York, and I will be live with you guys more than likely next Thursday, for the home opener against LA, and then a week from Tuesday, I actually will be postponing the FBI and FBI International season premieres and watching those on DVR, and I will be coming to you for the home opener between the Blues and the Wild. And if those go well, you could probably see me, doing maybe a game a week if it works out. And it may actually not even just be my teams. I might actually, I'd love to be able to watch along with a Jets game, maybe a Kings game if they're on early enough, certainly an Islanders game.
And this is going to be on both Twitch and your YouTube channel?
Correct.
I may have to jump on while I'm playing my new game and mess with you just a wee bit.
We do it with Mr. Rice from time to time. I will welcome the first of all, I will welcome the viewership, but secondly, I will welcome the banter, especially during the intermissions.
Oh yeah, I would jump on during the first intermission just to be an asshole.
Although you might actually kind of have to let me be with the Blues one because apparently they've got a new intermission team, and I'm kind of interested to see how it is because I haven't been able to get any of the preseason games.
Gotcha. I understand that. So we're at 1:44. What do you say we take a quick break, a refill, and come back in, say, 8 minutes?
Absolutely. We will see you guys in a bit.
See you in a few. And we are back.
Yes, we are.
Real quick score rundown. It is 7-5.
Yep. 7-5
Seven
in the sixth, and the Yankees hold on and win 6-5.
Nice. On top of that, Michigan lost again.
Which
Got done
ironic,
by 10.
which is hilarious considering Washington lost more than Michigan did and was unranked and held serve.
Yeah.
They held.
Yeah.
See, here's the funny thing. As we get into it, talk about a segue. Even though this isn't listed there because this was actually written earlier tonight. Talk about a team that was favored going on the road in college football and cannot hold serve.
Oh, I wish we could put the score up, but we did not. So let's take it here. Down goes Bama.
Talk about the similarities. Bama jumps out to a 4-score lead, annihilating Georgia, and has to hang on last week in Tuscaloosa. Now they actually go on the road to a 2-2 Vanderbilt team that is probably the best 2-2 school in the country, and is losing that game 24-13 at halftime. Never led and loses 40-35, marking the first time the Vanderbilt Commodores has ever beaten a number one team in the country.
That's crazy. First of all, for the first time beating a number one team, that's a phenomenal number one, especially since, let's be honest, Georgia was ranked as high as they were because of what people thought of them. Anybody who paid attention knew Georgia lost a lot. When you lose pass catchers like Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers, you're not going to recover right away. The defense still is very good, but the offense is going to struggle because he doesn't have you're talking about guys who were main pieces in an offense that won 2 consecutive national titles. Carson Beck, as good as he is, you take away his 2 biggest weapons and there's going to be some problems, which showed last week against Alabama. I will say this. Let's talk about surprising today.
Yeah, let's rip the Band-Aid off.
Not even that. I wasn't going to say that. I'm not going to talk about the ass whooping your boys took because everybody takes an ass whooping at least once a year. We've all seen it. I'm not going to go there.
In College Station, we all know, regardless if the Aggies are ranked, and we're talking that Texas A&M put 28 unanswered to start on the board against the number 9 ranked Missouri Tigers and held on and won 40. I can't even say held on and won 41-10. Yeah, Dad, there you go. You had to watch for 2 hours just for me to be able to talk to that. So go to bed, or at least get ready for Saturday Night Live. So and shush.
I'm going to talk about somebody else real quick.
Go ahead.
SMU is back.
Yes.
As they won again today against number 22 Louisville. They won 34-27 at Louisville. So beat the shit out of Florida State, who lost again. Dude, that's so bad. It's so bad in Tallahassee. But they lost again. So SMU beats 22nd ranked Louisville. SMU's got to get some love here. That's 2 pretty decent wins back to back. Minnesota beats number 11 USC. Let's had some upsets today that were really nice. PJ Fleck rowing the boat there against Lincoln Riley. Syracuse is starting to piss me off.
Tennessee in a dogfight right now, up 14-13 in Fayetteville, and the Hogs are driving with 2.5 minutes to go.
Yeah, and Arkansas is better than people give them credit for this year. I honestly think.
Could we Could we see 3 top 10 SEC teams all go down to unranked opponents on the road this week? I mean, because Texas A&M was ranked, but they were 25, so they were at the very, very back end of it.
Yeah, is it wrong that I'd laugh really fucking hard if that happened? I don't care if it's wrong. I'm still doing it. Let's see what else. Penn State holds serve at home against UCLA. Buckeyes hold serve at home. Very, very sloppy first half. They took a 7-0 lead to halftime and then just blew the doors off Iowa in the second half. Scored 28 unanswered points before 28 points before LSU or Iowa scored their next points. In a tune-up for next week's big one against Oregon, who won big against Michigan State last night. Georgia holds serve, beats Auburn 31-13. God, Auburn's a fucking mess. Ole Miss beats South Carolina 27-3. Indiana holds on. They won by 17 against Northwestern. Boise State. Did you see that kid from Boise State, the running back? He is scary good.
Jeanty, yep. 13
Holy
carries,
shit.
186 yards, and 3 touchdowns. As the Broncos move to 4-1, they'll get into the top 20 as they're at 21 right now over Utah State in a Mountain West battle.
Let's talk about that Washington-Michigan game just for a second. Do you know Donovan Edwards had as many yards as the quarterback had throwing?
Yeah, Rodgers, Michael Penix's replacement, 21 of 32, 271 yards, 2 touchdowns. Once I actually saw that it was a 3-score lead in College Station, I put on baseball the rest of the afternoon. I had Warframe on. This is the first time I'm actually seeing any of these scores.
Yeah, and obviously I did not watch the Buckeye game today because the Mets were on at the same time, and obviously the Mets are going to be where I'm at with it being the postseason. And next week, God willing, we'll be watching the Mets again in an LCS. But having said all that, let's
just to kind of round out the top 25 scoreboard here real quick. Iowa State holds on. Iowa State pounds Baylor 43-21 in a Big 12 matchup. The Cyclones are now 5-0, and Indiana goes into Northwestern, wins 41-24. The Hoosiers are 6-0, and then last night we had Oregon hold serve against Michigan State 31-10. The Ducks are 5-0. They'll be in the top 3 next week, especially if Arkansas wins. Which it's now 1st and 10 at the Tennessee 11 with 1:49 left. So basically, at this point, the Hogs are just playing the clock game to be able to kick the game-winning field goal on a chip shot. And then last night, you alluded to it a moment ago. Syracuse at 3-1 goes into UNLV, number 25 ranked UNLV, the first time in program history that UNLV has been ranked in football, and wins 44-41 in overtime. Kyle McCord, 40 of 63, 355 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, it's what he did against every team that wasn't good last year. Okay.
It's just going to be ironic that UNLV gets into the poll for the first time in program history, loses in overtime. It's not going to be the worst thing in the world for them because, first of all, it was an out-of-conference matchup. But this Syracuse team is for real. This Syracuse team is probably going to end up being in the top 20, if not like somewhere around 17 or 18. But they're going to make a pretty dramatic jump into the polls when they come out tomorrow.
I think you're going to see a Syracuse team that has an outside shot of playing for the ACC championship, which would piss me off. No, I'm kidding. I wish the kid nothing but luck, but Daddy wanted you to have the starting job, and okay.
I mean, is it too early to start thinking about maybe a Miami Syracuse, ACC matchup? Because Miami, 5-0, they're going up against a Cal team that's 3-1 in their own right. But at least Miami's played someone, and I tell you what, Syracuse might have. They're certainly not the best team, but winning against Ohio, winning against Georgia Tech, who was ranked. You lose to Stanford on a nail biter. You whoop up on Holy Cross, and then you go into UNLV and win. And oh yeah, they actually have to go to Raleigh next week to play NC State. And then you're at Pitt. I mean, they don't play the only other ranked opponent that they play the rest of the year is the season finale against Miami.
You could see that technically 2 weeks in a row if you get them in a ACC championship game as well. Arkansas wouldn't scored a touchdown. It's 19-14. Miami's going to get past Cal. That's not an easy thing to do and go across country. We all know. We all seen that. But how bad? By the way, how bad is ESPN's coverage now that they have to do Cal Miami on a Saturday night primetime game?
I mean, it's a 5-0 against a 3-1. I mean, it's on paper it's decent, but I mean, this is if you look top to bottom, the only game that was actually supposed to be a game this weekend was the one where my boys had their doors blown off because it was the only ranked matchup. It was no other. I mean, you had a lot of the ranked teams had teams with 500 or better records, but y'all figured they were supposed to hold serve because these were supposed to be the opening of conference play. These were not supposed to be trap games.
Yeah, no, agreed. But let's get to the bottom in the blast so we can get to the translator because we're at 204 already. Holy crap. Devontae Adams, where do you think he lands?
Does it matter at this point? I mean, people are actually starting to there's talk that trade talks are really ramping up. Could he end up going to the Jets and reuniting with Rodgers? I think it would actually help Garrett Wilson. I don't think it's going to happen, though. I really don't know. I mean, a lot of people are saying, I think wherever he goes, it doesn't really make a difference because as good as he is, he's such a loudmouth and a cancer basically off the field like Odell Beckham is. It's going to be more of a distraction than anything.
Let's back that up again because loudmouth and cancer didn't start until the reason he went to the Raiders got kicked out the door because of bullshit. This all started because he went to the Raiders to play with his boy. They showed him the door, and they haven't done dick. They showed him the door because Josh McDaniels was an idiot. So, cancer, now he is. But he was never like that until all that shit went down. So,
you notice
let's keep it
notice the recurring theme on this show in the last month, though, that we've actually talked about a lot, or really over the last 6 weeks, that a lot of these divas and the locker room turmoil, it's all coming out of the receiver room.
Well, yeah, no, I got you there.
Diggs, Beckham, Devontae Adams, Jordan Addison in Minnesota. We're not talking about really anybody else in football, and all the drama is coming out of the wide receivers.
It always comes out of wide receivers because they are the divas. They're the, pain in the ass.
Straight cash, homie.
Maybe straight cash, but it was straight pain. The second thing over, Karl Anthony Towns to the Knicks. What the fuck?
To break down the trade, the Knicks get Karl Anthony Towns and the draft rights to James Niaji. He was a second-round pick, 31st overall. He's currently playing over in Spain. Charlotte ends up getting – it's a three-team deal to be able to swing this. Charlotte gets Charlie Brown, Daquan Jeffries, Dwayne Washington Jr., 2 future second-round picks, a 2025 second-round pick, and cash considerations. So really, Charlotte just loads up with more talent that's going to be in the G League or play on the back end of their bench while they're top 5 in the lottery again. I think the Knicks win the trade because the Knicks end up getting Julius Randle. Now, even though Randle's been hurt the better part of the last 2 years, they also end up getting a future first-round pick, which I want to say is originally owned. It was originally Detroit's pick that's been flipped 2 or 3 times. Keita Bates-Diop. But I think the key point of this, New York gets Karl Anthony Towns, but Minnesota gets Dante
Dante
DiVincenzo
DiVincenzo. I was going to say that DiVincenzo is a great player
to pair up with
Um,
Ant or be able to spell Ant.
Yeah, and now you don't have to play 18 bigs because you got him and Gobert. That you're talking about a team that was just in the finals, not just in the Western Conference Finals.
Even though they got swept out, but yeah.
That got better.
Look at the dichotomy on that as well. The Knicks get their big name player out there to pair him with Jalen Brunson. They strip the cabinet a little bit for some of the other guys that allowed them to actually get to the second round last year. But the two teams that were in the West Finals last year, Dallas goes out and gets Klay Thompson to add to that loaded cupboard, and then the Wolves end up getting three key players from the Knicks, including a former starter, a guy who has basically turned his career around in DiVincenzo, and a future first to pair up with Gobert and Ant, who's arguably a top 5 player in the league right now, maybe even the best player in the league.
This is pretty even of a trade with the two biggest pieces that we have seen in a while. Because I don't think the Donovan Mitchell trade was very even. I think the Cavs took very much advantage of Utah on that, in what they getting Donovan Mitchell.
Because look at where it's actually gone. Mitchell actually has elevated himself to a top 10 player. Certainly top 15, the top 10, arguable, but certainly top 15 on a franchise that's loaded. Sexton really wasn't the player that he was. Markkanen turned himself into a perennial all-star, and right now is the face of that franchise.
Yeah, no, I agree. This is going to be interesting. I think this makes it – honestly, this makes the Knicks the biggest – on paper, the biggest threat to the Celtics in the Eastern Conference right now.
Knicks?
And I say on paper for this reason. I still firmly believe a fully healthy Cleveland Cavaliers team would have taken Boston to 7 games and or beaten them in the playoffs last year. Yes, I'm a homer, but you saw it with as well as they played with and without Donovan Mitchell, with no throw in the middle, no this one, no that one. So I still firmly believe that, and I think Kenny Atkinson is the piece that's going to get them up over the hump and possibly to another finals, the first post-LeBron finals ever. But on paper right now, that Knicks team is scary good. And
Knicks
I hate them.
or Philly?
Knicks, because Philly is a walking mash unit half the fucking season. They all are.
I'll tell you this much. As much as we hate the Knicks, and as much as the country is basically so nose blind to the Knicks and the Lakers because of the markets that they're in, they're basically like you're right. It's like the Cowboys. Cat and Jalen Brunson is going to be a lot of fun to watch for all the wrong reasons.
Exactly. By the way, real quick, gone final. Arkansas upsets Tennessee.
Which means you're going to see Texas number 1. The Buckeyes are certainly going to slide to 2.
Georgia back up to 3.
What's that?
Georgia back up to 3.
Could you make an argument of Oregon maybe sliding up to 3? They haven't been as impressive, but Georgia didn't lose to an unranked. Oregon hasn't lost to an unranked team. Could they maybe do this to be able to set the stage and create storyline for next week, 2 versus 3?
That would be the only way they do it. I would almost think Georgia's going to go back to 3. They were 5 after they lost, and lost in an ugly fashion. They were getting the piss beat out of them. And then Alabama took their foot off the gas. So now, speaking of the NBA and the Knicks, since he played there very briefly, but let's talk about the loss of the first ever global ambassador, Dikembe Mutombo. Think about the three Georgetown centers from the late 80s, mid 80s to the early 90s. They went from Patrick Ewing to Dikembe Mutombo to Alonzo Mourning, John Thompson Sr., John Thompson Jr., because the kid was the third. What a great fucking recruiter of big men, man.
And let's also be honest, after Mourning and after AI, that was the last time that Georgetown was relevant.
Yes. Well, they had a small run when Patrick took over the first year.
Georgetown's biggest claim to fame was losing, I want to say, 22 straight Big East games a couple of years ago.
Oh, no, yeah. That was right before Ewing took over. But there was the old story. He used to walk into the bars in college. Who wants to sex Mutombo? And yeah, but I'll tell you, remember he was the centerpiece of the first authoring of a down 2-0 win best of 5 series when his Denver Nuggets beat the Sean Kemp, Gary Payton led Seattle Supersonics, who were the number 1 seed. They were the first 8 to beat a 1 in NBA playoff history. And they did it down 2-0 to win 3 in a row. The Dikembe Mutombo, Mahmoud Abdul Rauf Denver Nuggets.
Formerly Chris Jackson, yeah. And who can ever forget the lasting memory of Dikembe lying at center court, holding the ball, crying. Yeah.
Yes, he's one who I wish would have gotten a ring too. There's certain players that no matter what team you root for, you want to see guys get rings, and he's one of them. Patrick Ewing being another. So that's those two there. So Dikembe, will miss you terribly. I mean, come on. When you played the NBA games and you wanted to play where you block shots, you used Dikembe Mutombo.
And what did you do? Regardless of whether you were playing the computer, your buddy sitting next to you, or jumping online, if you actually had him, in like a legacy mode in the future games where they would put the legends in the game, you were wagging your finger
every time. And even if like NBA Live, me and Creedies and some buddies of ours created a custom team, I was wagging my finger. I was blocking shots all the fucking time. Didn't matter.
I'll always remember. I'm trying to remember what it was. Was it State Farm or Allstate or something where he actually was in where he was in an office setting and he would knock something away and no.
Or he's at the laundromat too.
Yeah.
It was State Farm because that was the spoof on the office linebacker from Terry Tate.
It was Geico.
It was Geico. Why did you put the next thing in there? It's like the only thing that we were guaranteed. And the fact that she wasn't unanimous is an absolute fucking travesty.
Yeah, it's we don't want to make the argument, but we know that somebody actually had to vote the other one, being Angel Reese, for that with first place. But we know that was politics involved, and you could say whatever the hell you want. She had a record-setting season, and her team got in the playoffs as opposed to got her coach fired.
Did you see what happened after the Fever were eliminated? The ratings.
Yeah.
To the basement. I don't want to spend a lot of time on Caitlin because we have covered Caitlin a bunch this year. And it's not that I don't want to. It's that I just will get angry about it and we'll go for even longer than we're going now. If that isn't telling to these fucking women, including one of my all-time favorites, Diana Taurasi, to shut the fuck up, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
Because you have Sabrina, Kelsey, what's the other girl's name from New York? Brianna Stewart.
Yeah.
They're all still playing. Nobody gives a fuck. Caitlin's not playing. No one gives a shit. Get your heads out of your asses, ladies. Stop being douchey to her and understand, just like and I'm going to use Magic and Bird more than Michael in this because Magic and Bird are the ones that really turn the NBA around. Just like Magic and Larry, yes, they're rookies. You didn't want to see them do everything right away because you wanted them to respect the elder statesmen in the game. Shut the fuck up. You guys are traveling, not walking through airports on charters because she has brought more viewers to this game than any player since the inception of the WNBA. Right, wrong, or indifferent. That's the fact, Jack.
Thank you, Bill Murray. Where's
That's the
Mike?
fact, Jack.
Michael, where's your drill instructor?
Oh,
Blown up, sir.
what have you men been doing? Training, sir. What kind of training?
Army training.
We need stripes on the board now.
Yeah, I'm gonna get some stripes up on it. Certainly, I'm gonna get some Bill Murray stuff on the board here by the end of the month.
Oh,
last thing on there, AEW has a new 3-year contract extension with Warner Brothers Discovery, which is going to pay them upwards of $170 million. It is also what it's going to mean for their television shows. AEW Dark was actually canceled last year. AEW Rampage, their typical Friday night show, is gone. Collision will remain. Dynamite will remain. But the entire AEW library is moving to Max.
Really?
Yes.
That's cool.
Which actually means you're going to have the possibility. It's not 100% sure if it's going to be simulcast later this year when it takes effect, but you're going to have the possibility of Max streaming AEW and Netflix streaming WWE.
Ooh.
And I'm actually tired of I'm kind of getting tired of actually hearing the comparison, even though the problem I have with WWE right now, granted, yes, it is entertainment. It's still with the whole stupid family, and the one I'm talking about, that has now taken over all of their programming again. But AEW putting on really good product, especially now with Will Ospreay and Ricochet, and that coming to the forefront and everything, and the winding down of the career of Bryan Danielson, and now there's talk that Jon Moxley turning heel and attacking Bryan Danielson and taking his title shot away from Darby Allin. That there's a huge rumor that this is actually going to be the introduction, or at least the lead in to bringing in Shane McMahon as the guy pulling his strings.
Really? That's a nice angle.
I kind of like that because the weird thing is they were still calling it the Blackpool Combat Club, and William Regal hasn't worked there in over a year.
That's right. Regal was there, wasn't he?
Yep. He was the one that put that group together and then went to WWE after he was let out of his contract. But all eyes on the product is just it's just working. It's NXT is out on the road. They're now broadcast on CW. There's talk that the NWA is going to end up getting a significant TV deal. TNA's project is running really well. Somebody whose name we will not mention is getting their world title shot against Clelander and Nick Nemeth later on this month at Bound for Glory, because I also don't have the video queued up. But very good on them. This is a win-win for everybody involved with AEW, with the Khans, with Warner, everybody.
Speaking of the Khans, one quick NFL question. How long before what's-his-name's brother cleans house in Jacksonville?
Who gets benched first, Sunshine or Deshaun? Let's actually say this. Their loss last week in Vegas was not Deshaun's fault. Everybody else let them down. But still, he has not thrown for over 200 yards in a game this year, and he has not thrown for over 300 in his Browns career.
I'm here so I won't get fined.
I agree, but I'm gonna hold your feet to the fire. Give me an answer. You don't get to go Marshawn here. I want an answer on this, honestly, because you're
Honestly, hold on. Honestly,
because you pull for the Browns, but you're also down in you're also down in that kind of country where Lawrence's name still means something.
Sunshine will get benched first because Sunshine isn't making as much guaranteed money as Deshaun.
They're still making I want to say over 45 a year each.
They have a way out of Sunshine's contract where it won't kill the cap in 2 years. The Browns don't have that. They have to play Deshaun. Sorry. Dude, speaking of Deshaun, your brother, did you see what I wrote to him on Facebook today?
My brother has blocked me on Facebook because he doesn't want to see all the sports note stuff that I post.
Fair. It was AJ Styles, the meme with he's in the front and the Undertaker's in the back. AJ Styles has the Buckeye logo and the Gardos logo on his face, and in the back it's the Undertaker. My response to him was, "That's awful disrespectful to the Undertaker."
Nah, fuck it.
You gonna do the couch? Look, real quick on the Browns. No, it wasn't fully on Deshaun. But I'm gonna say this, and I'm right. If that was Baker Mayfield 3 years ago, it would be all Baker's fault. So throw him the same blame that you would throw Baker and knock it off. And this is not you. This is a collective you. Not you personally, because I know you will take Deshaun and, one of those as fast as you can. That defense gave up 4 touchdowns in the fourth quarter against the Chargers a few years ago, and they blame Baker. Nope. Guess what? You're making that kind of fucking money. You're the only quarterback with fully guaranteed contract. Win the fucking game. Shut the fuck up.
How do you actually lose a game to where there's no Max Crosby or Devontae Adams?
Because Deshaun is your quarterback.
You also still do not have Nicholas Jamal Chubb. Now, there's still no guarantee that Nicholas Jamal Chubb is going to be anywhere near the Nicholas Jamal Chubb of previous to the injury, even though Nicholas Jamal Chubb has officially now been back at practice and removed from the PUP list. They've also made some moves. Michael Hall Jr. Is eligible to return next week as well, I think, after his allegations.
Their problem, you can tell me all the moves they're making in the world. You know what their problem is? They don't have the cap space to shore up that offensive line. They lost Bill Callahan. There it is.
Yep. You could not have said it any better. And although I will say, kudos to Miles, 2 foot injuries and gets 2 sacks last week.
Myles Garrett is the face of this franchise. His co-face of the franchise is Nicholas Jamal Chubb. If you're putting them as a 3-headed monster, it's Hospital Ward is the third face of the franchise.
When he's out there.
Yeah, what's the problem with that, Jim? It's not their guaranteed money quarterback. I said this to somebody the other day. I said, hey, did you notice Progressive hasn't done a new national commercial since Baker left?
With an NFL player, nope.
With anything.
Well, here's also the part of the reasoning with that is that they, Miles really doesn't do commercials. Miles is a great guy and he's charismatic, but he doesn't have that camera level charisma. No. He will shoot shit like how you and I, do for 3 hours every Saturday, 2.5, 3 hours every Saturday. Baker will not only do that, but Baker's also very good. He's a great interview. He's a great personality. He's got the charisma to be able to carry himself and know when he's actually in conversation mode as opposed to show mode. They don't have another guy like that, especially with the fact of they're in that they're in their, Progressive is in my backyard, 3 miles up the street. But it's also, I think that, Progressive kind of scaling back with a lot of that, just considering they sold like 2/3 of their properties to downsize because most of their company works from home now.
Well, you also have the quarterback of the Browns for the first time. Well, really, if you think about it, Baker was the most marketable player the Browns have had since '99. Other than Peyton Hillis, who of course ends up on the cover of Madden. You cannot market Deshaun Watson. You can't. He's got too much baggage to do that. And you're not going to market Jameis because he's the backup. And you lost Joe Flacco. Miles, for as much of the face of the franchise as he is, he's not what Baker was.
Let's also think that could Miles also be the fact that you're wasting his potential right now?
This
having
is
one playoff appearance in his career. Yeah. Didn't he actually not play in one of those or something?
No, he played in both games.
Okay,
because he's the one. He was the first one to dive on the fumble, and it squirted out of his hands in Pittsburgh.
Okay, so
he played hurt against Houston.
But you're basically wasting him. So I mean, I don't want to say he's going to be a Brown for life, much like the Rams did with an Aaron Donald. But I could see a scenario where after his contract, that could they possibly move him? Could he retire? Does he actually? I mean, he could definitely take the hometown discount, but I think his stock is going to keep elevating to where he's actually been a defensive player of the year. He's been a finalist 4 other times. It's, how much of a discount can you really give a guy who is your best player, hands down? And typically the offense guys are the more marketable guys.
Mm-hmm. One last question on the Browns, and let's get to band practice. Bigger waste of Hall of Fame talent, Joe Thomas or Myles Garrett? Answer it. I'm doing what you made me do with Sunshine and Deshaun.
Joe Thomas, without question.
Thank you. But it's 1 and 1A. Because they finally have a generational pass rusher. And they're not doing dick to get him a ring. My sister sent a great text today. We're all getting happy about the Mets. She goes, now tomorrow we'll all be disappointed by the Browns.
Unless you actively cheer against them like you and I do, we have no. See, here's the funny thing: is we're very conflicted, and for the situation that we've been put in, we're allowed to bandwagon with this team whenever the hell we choose. When they lose, and they lose as embarrassingly as they have the last couple of weeks, we can throw shade on them and still stick up for the couple of guys that do actually perform. If they go out and lose tomorrow, it's going to be relatively funny because, number one, Jaden Daniels is certainly going to be able to show that he could end up being the real deal. He could be what he was this year, that C.J. Stroud was last year. But if Deshaun goes out and shits the bed, I could conceivably see them making a change at quarterback.
Jim, if they go out and shit the bed tomorrow, we're not throwing shade on them. We're throwing fucking dirt on 2024.
Thank you. It's the second I actually said that and you actually pumped the brakes on my statement, I kind of thought you were going with dirt.
Yeah, dirt, manure, whatever the fuck you want to throw in it. They're done. Speaking of using your words to elicit mine, push the button.
Would you shut up and just push the button already?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
It's the YC Translator on the Wise Guys Sports Show.
I'm forever unclean.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is the YZ Translator. It is the best segment of the night. Why? Because it is the last segment of the night. It is the segment that James and I give each other names in and out of the sports world. And we come up with the first thing that comes to our brains. Now, I will be honest, I did try and rig the translator this week because of something that I know people who would help us fund finding that jersey and creating it just the way I said. By the way, that person is my father. So, we have a new tradition with the YZ Translator, and that is James opens up the Chiron so I can lose my shit and laugh. So, James, if you would, please, sir. When did you go to one of Donnie's Trump stump speeches?
Ironically enough, I saw that watching a YouTube reactor to the new Warframe update. Somebody gifted him the new frame that came out on Tuesday and put
Nice.
that in the comments. So I
Oh my God.
I politely lifted it and changed the first part.
Refrigerator. You might as well have written
You could have been,
Cofife.
you know what? I decided to stay with the refrigerator because squirrel would have been a little too on the nose.
Oh, so James, as it is my duty to give the first name in the Wisey Translator, I am going to go with somebody. Well, he deserves a few shots taken at him. And James, your first name in the Wisey Translator is Michigan quarterback Alex Orji.
That had nothing to do with the answer. I just feel that it's a little on the nose. So and we actually have not played that yet tonight with all the opportunities that we've had. So it's obligatory. But sorry, you're not JJ McCarthy. Just do enough to get your team to a bowl at this point.
And you don't have Connor. Well,
Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit.
and with Alex, if he's throwing the ball, it's shit. He was benched today. Again. And by the way, I'm going to say this to you now on the air. If November 30th goes the way I think it's going to go, we're not going to talk about it afterwards.
Because it's going to be an absolute whitewashing at that point.
I mean, it's going to be good for my soul, but I'm not going to be a douche about it.
By the way, Cal 21, Miami 10, 7:16 to go, first half.
What the fuck?
Could we see
Dude,
three top 10 teams go down on the road?
To unranked
Four. If Cal
Bama.
holds on with this, you've got 1,
Bama,
4,
Tennessee,
9, and 1, 4, 8, and 9 would all go down this week on the road.
and 3 of them are in the SEC. So yeah, that's Jesus Christ. Who we got?
Michael, we alluded to the team earlier, but I want to get your thoughts on possibly why we kind of we might have seen some of this coming with what came out in the last week and a half, and how it changed the entire facade of their season. Your first name in the YZ Translator is now former UNLV quarterback Matthew Sluka.
In the annals of sports douchebaggery, this kid may take the fucking cake. First of all, have you seen all the things that have come out about this? He left because he said he didn't get the NIL money that he was promised. Now it's coming out that he got more from certain sources, and there's somebody else on the team left too. So who's the asshole here? Is it UNLV, which this isn't basketball, so we know it's not UNLV. What does this kid want? He's not that fucking good.
I mean, you figure he would have been a god on campus there.
Oh, my God.
And he actually stayed through, especially with the first time that they've been in the polls in program history.
Agreed. I don't get it. I don't fucking get it. I don't. I think the thing I'm struggling with the most is you're going to talk shit, and then it's going to come out that you're an idiot. No one's going to take you at your fucking word to recruit you, dude. You're going to end up at fucking John Carroll or Mount Union or some small school like that, as opposed to being in a big-time school. They're the first two small schools that popped into my head, James. It's not about actually going there.
No, it's because I'm actually thinking now he shot himself in the foot so bad that could he now end up parading around to more teams than DJ Gungala Gungala?
Well, Florida State's going to need a quarterback because DJ's dog shit. They lost to Dabo today. You ought to be fucking ashamed of yourself.
Yeah.
James, I have one more for you, as I normally do. Your second and final name in the YZ Translator is one that's going to be close to your heart, I have a feeling, this postseason. And that is Cleveland Guardians center fielder Lane Thomas.
I take back every bad thing that I've said since you were traded for the next 36 hours. There is a limited time offer on this exchange. Do something against Screwball on Monday afternoon, and you might actually have it pulled back. I don't know if that one's landed yet.
That was a fucking shot. All right, who you got for me to wrap it up there, bud?
Let me just say, I don't know who the center fielder, and I'm sorry, who the left fielder is for the Tigers, but he'll need his rocket up his ass to catch this one.
Oh, shit.
Well played.
Michael, your last name in the YZ Translator tonight. We all better go to bed early tonight, or as early as we can, because we get up first thing tomorrow morning and watch him if we wanted to. Sam Darnold.
I think I will take a page out of the book of Bill Belichick and say everybody likes Sam Darnold except the Jets. There's a problem with that. The Jets are the team that drafted him. I will say that if you look at the redemption arcs of Sam Darnold and Geno Smith and Baker Mayfield, you are talking about three guys who are right now in the top 10 in the league. And the two teams that got rid of them are trash. My first thought of Sam Darnold is make him trade JJ.
Look at the arcs that went with that, as well as they were brought in to be franchise quarterbacks and the future heir apparent. Baker at least got to a playoff game. Darnold couldn't do shit in the first 2 years in the Jets. They both leave. They both end up having a cup of coffee and an incredibly forgettable one. And then their original team replaces them with guys who were paid millions upon millions upon millions and have vastly underperformed in their time there. We all know Cleveland with not getting nearly a third worth of the return that they thought that they were going to with Watson. And then New York basically getting 3 plays out of Aaron Rodgers last year.
Wait, you forget Zach Wilson was in between those two.
I mean, at least he didn't run up his team's anus.
Sanchez still won 4 playoff games. We got shit entirely wrong with us.
I
Oh,
have
boy.
no recollection as to what you speak of, my friend.
Oh, boy. All right. So next week on the 12th, we will actually be doing, well, a couple different things. We're going to talk about, obviously, college football. We're going to do a watch-along with the Ohio State-Oregon game, which will be the big game of the week. That will be the night game on Peacock and NBC. What other games? I know they're not the only big one next week. What other big ones we got next week?
God, we're into week 7 already.
Yeah, we Oregon and Ohio State is the big one of the week. Bama's home for South Carolina. Missouri plays UMass. Seriously.
Penn State, USC.
Penn State USC. We got the Red River game is on Saturday as well. Stanford Notre Dame, which is always a good game because it's a rivalry game.
Purdue at Virginia is ranked. I'm sorry, Louisville at Virginia, Purdue at Illinois. I'm just looking over the ranked games. Arizona heads to BYU. Mississippi State goes to Athens to play the Bulldogs. Florida, Tennessee.
Ole Miss and LSU will look good.
Yeah, that's going to be a good one. And then Iowa State at West Virginia, K-State at Colorado, and Boise State at Hawaii late.
It's going to be an interesting week for college football. We will wrap up next week's playoffs as we will have the LCS. Both league championship series will be set, and we'll see which one of us is right. Because we agree on the American League, but you have the Yankees going through, don't you?
No, I had the Royals.
So we both have the Royals and Gardos in the American League. You have San Diego and Philly. In the National League, I have San Diego and the Mets, although San Diego's losing 7-5 going to the ninth in Chavez Ravine. So we'll see what happens there. Another packed show again next week, man, especially with the watch-along.
Yeah, so we've actually, we thank you guys for being with us tonight, even if you're actually going to watch the on-demand or catch us on the video on demand on YouTube. We will be back with you guys next Saturday night, but before then, I will see you guys guys tonight earlier for the home opener with the Sabres and the LA Kings coming live at 7 p.m., which is going to be hilarious considering I'm also going to have the Warframe stream going on in the background. So if you see me buffering or going squirrel, you'll know why.
And I will be on one of the platforms watching this and making fun of him incessantly at some point in time.
I might be a little bit more obliged to pay attention to the Warframe stream, and I know we're a sports show, but they every year in October, and this is very cool that I kind of wanted to touch on, they do what they call a QTCC campaign. So every October for the last 5 years, they have partnered with I'm trying to remember the name of it. It is the Princess Margaret Cancer Foundation in Toronto. It is the 5th largest cancer research facility in the world. And to date, in the first 4 years, they have raised over $700,000
Wow.
for cancer research. This year's goal is $100,000. The campaign launched back on Monday, on October 1st. I'm going to share this. Can you see how much they've already raised in the first 4 days of this campaign?
Yo. Damn.
I kicked them $50 myself on Thursday, but that is incredibly cool that they are going to meet that $100,000 probably by the time they do their live stream next Thursday night.
Wow.
When they did their kickoff, they kind of like did a 2-hour thing. They didn't even do any gameplay. They were actually just talking about, laying the campaign out and everything. And the great thing is that you can earn like in-game rewards, even if you don't contribute, for not only watching their official channels and their international channels, but they've also partnered with different Twitch content creators that you can contribute to their channels. But even if you don't contribute, just by going there, the charity is going to also be able to put a dollar amount depending on how many people are watching and collecting those in-game rewards. So
nice.
They did. They wanted to put a goal for $3,000 on the Monday stream, which was running from 1 to 3 p.m. They raised $30,000 in 2 hours.
Jesus. Well, good for them, and that's definitely a well needed charity to go towards. But It's now officially Sunday, James.
Which means now I actually have to wait until kickoff to be able to download and cut the video for tomorrow. But I will see you guys a little later on this week, hopefully with the sports note. I will certainly see you live on Thursday night. Michael, you and I will probably talk at some point tomorrow, probably certainly after the polls come out tomorrow afternoon.
Absolutely.
And we will see you guys live next Saturday night for the Bucks and the Ducks.
We're picking it up right around halftime because, I got to put Bobby to sleep first. So we'll break down the first half and then jump right in the second half and probably yell at each other at some point in time.
Yeah, there might be a few pops being shared during that night at some point.
Yes, there will be. We'll see you guys in a week. Have a good one.
Everybody have a good night. We've got a very, very special show planned for you guys later on this month that we will actually talk about next week. We're going to have a little bit more details on the 3rd anniversary show.
Yes, we will.
Everybody have a good night. We'll see you next Saturday.
See you guys.